every day here on the Thom Hartmann Program, Louise and I and our team, Sean, Nate, Shira, Dave, Chase, Sue, Nigel, Ron, we all work to put together the very, very best show we possibly can. And there's an enormous amount of work that goes into the show. And one of the things that comes out of that is a lot of content, a lot of specific information that we go through and we dig out and, we want to share with you. And Sue puts that into our newsletter every week. And I think you will, if you don't already receive our newsletter, it comes in email every day, about an hour after we're off the air, or maybe a couple hours after we're off the air. And Sue goes through and pulls literally every link to every story that we talked about and puts it into the newsletter. It's free. We don't sell the list or anything. You complete safety and security. There's no charge. There's no nothing. Just, plug in your email address over at thomhartmann.com. And you get signed up for the newsletter. It's all fairly obvious. You'll see it on the website. So check it out, thomhartmann.com. Thank you. It's Friday. It's the last day of our fund drive, the pledge drive here for Free Speech TV. Your last chance to call in and make a contribution or to make a continuing contribution, become a member of the sustaining, members of Free Speech TV, making donations on an ongoing basis. Special thanks, by the way, to Andrew in San Diego, Robert and Alice in San Luis Obispo, Ronald in San Francisco, and Diane in Santa Rosa, who together pulled together $15,000 for a match today. So whatever you give today will be doubled. So your $10 becomes $20, or $500 becomes $1,000, whatever in between or above or below. And so it's a great way to wrap up the pledge drive. Is today the final day of the pledge drive, and also the final day of this extraordinary match with so many thanks to the fine people who helped put it together. So please call now, 877-378-8669, or go to freespeech.org and make your contribution. There's a whole selection of premiums now. With a $20 gift, you get the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker, proud student of the Thom Hartmann University. You can also, with the $20 gift, get a window cling that says any functioning adult, or a window cling that says think outside the fox. I love it. You can get both of those window clings for $35. Also, with the $25 gift, we have the Impeachments. Nice little. I have a feeling someday these memorabilia of the impeachment of Donald Trump are actually going to have a lot of value. Just like today, if you have any of the stickers or buttons or things that go back to the Nixon impeachment efforts, or for that matter, the Clinton ones, they command quite a price in collectors' markets. So, whether these will or not, I don't know. But there's the $30 Trump small hand soap, for example. Isn't that cool? And it'll keep for quite some time. So also with a $50 gift, you get a Change the Channel Free Speech TV tote bag. And keep in mind, your $50 gift becomes $100 today. I mean, that's to Free Speech TV. You still get the tote bag, but it becomes $100. With a $100 gift, you get the Any Functional Adult long sleeve shirt, sizes small through XX large. With $150, you get my new book, which is coming out next week. Or it starts shipping next week from, online booksellers, and bookstores will be putting them on the shelves next week, next Tuesday, I think it is. And that is The Hidden History of the Supreme Court and the Betrayal of America. With a $250 gift, you can participate in a virtual meet and greet where you'll see me, I'll hear you, and a collection, a group of people who make this contribution, and we'll just talk about what's going on in the world and whatever you'd like, actually. And I will try as candidly as possible to answer any questions you may have. And with a $1,000 gift, kind of same thing, only in person, right here in Portland. If you want to visit the Rose City, it's a great place. Come on in, hang out in the studio for an hour. We'll go next door and have lunch. And of course, with the $360 gift, we have the Study Up package with Professor Tom. That is the bumper sticker, proud student of Thom Hartmann University, plus 3 of my books. ADHD, Hunter to Farmer's World. This literally just came out last month. It's a brand new book. In a way, we took my original book on ADD and basically completely rewrote it because it's a new time and we've learned a lot more since I first wrote it. And it's, so much has validated my original hypothesis that ADHD is not, in most cases, is not a disease or an illness or a dysfunction. It's just a different way of having having your brain work. And that in some professions, like being a talk show host, it can actually be an advantage. Also, Walking Your Blues Away, the book on how to deal with stress and trauma, and which isn't a book on so much walking as it is mental exercises. And the Thom Hartmann Reader, which is a collection of pieces from a whole bunch of different of my books. That's with $360. Excuse me. So those are the premiums. But, the bottom line is Free Speech TV needs your help. We need progressive media. We need progressive media to be strong and stable and secure and to last and to persist and to grow. And all of those things can happen if enough of you call right now, 877-378-8669, and make a contribution to Free Speech TV, whether it's $10 or $10,000, it all is really important. And frankly, a lot of $10 gifts are really, really important because it broadens the base of support for Free Speech TV. And not to say that, larger gifts aren't important also, but if all you can give is $10 or $25 or $35, please call now. Last chance. Your money will be doubled. This is and thanks again to Andrew, Robert, and Alice, Ronald, and Diane.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Well, happy Whistleblower Friday. TGIF, Shabbat Shalom, Juma Mubarak. This weekend, Rosh Hashanah is starting, yeah. All kinds of stuff going on. In the second hour of our program today, Congressman Ro Khanna will be with us for a full hour taking your calls. In about 20 minutes, 25 minutes, Tom LoBianco is going to drop by for a few minutes to tell us about his new book about Mike Pence. Should be interesting. Looking forward to that. And it's Anything Goes Friday, whatever you'd like to talk about. Although I think that some of the really pressing issues, or one of them, probably the most pressing issue that we're all confronting right now, is the sober realization by the rest of the world, number one, by the American political system, number two. Yesterday you had a bunch of Republicans running around going, I haven't had time to read the whistleblower report, by the American people, and even by a few people over at Fox so-called News, that we've got a mob boss in the White House. We've got a criminal, a serial criminal, and an incompetent one. It's like the gang that can't shoot straight in the White House. And he's got all these people around him who are trying to cover up for him, including Bill Barr, who, successfully covered up for Reagan and Bush. He thought, hey, I can do this. I've done it before. Ain't working now. And, you got people, lawyers over there saying, oh, well, let's put this, evidence of what Peter DeFazio yesterday on the floor of the House of Representatives called treason. And I agree with him. I mean, what else can you call it? When the President of the United States goes to a foreign official and says, hey, nice little country you got there. Be a shame if something happened to it if you don't get me some dirt on my political opponent. Maybe this is a matter of definitions, and maybe treason isn't quite the right word. I mean, the Republicans are all flipped out because Peter DeFazio used this word on the floor of the House. In fact, we should invite Peter on to discuss it. And, saying, take that back. And, there actually is a rule. One of the House rules is that you cannot speak disparagingly of other federal officers, of other elected officials. I remember when Cynthia McKinney back, 10 years ago, was it, Sean? Thereabouts? About a decade ago. It was when George Bush was president, and maybe even more than 10 years ago. In fact, it must have been. And I wrote an op-ed that was published first on Common Dreams that called out Dick Cheney and said that, Dick Cheney had committed crimes, that Dick Cheney was a criminal, a war criminal specifically is what I called him. And Cynthia McKinney went to the floor of the House of Representatives and read this out loud and into the record. And about halfway through and she's reading my piece, and about halfway through it gets to the point where I call Dick Cheney a war criminal. And whoever was up at the speaker's chair, they rotates, starts banging his gavel and saying, "You are out of order. You may not do that. You may not say." And she just keeps reading. And a couple of guys came out and literally dragged her off the floor of the House as she continued reading this piece. She came on this show a day or so later to talk about it. I think that was the first time that we'd ever talked. But there is this rule that you may not disparage. Now, calling Dick Cheney a war criminal, I would say that that's simply accurate. It's simply the truth. Dick Cheney is a war criminal, as is George W. Bush, as were many of the senior administration officials in his administration. It's amazing to me to watch Condi Rice get her image rehabilitated. She's a war criminal, just like Donald Trump is a traitor. Now, maybe he's not serving the interests of his country. He's serving his own personal interests. He's serving the interests of other countries. And now what we've got is this worldwide oligarchy that has emerged, that you've got billionaires in the United States funding and encouraging. And country after country after country is being taken over by these so-called populist strongmen, right-wingers, who are seizing control of the media. Viktor Orban in Hungary has basically seized control of the media by having his billionaire buddies literally buy up all the major media in Hungary. And then the billionaires, for the ones that haven't been bought up, the billionaires are buying enormous amounts of advertising in them, so they're completely beholden to the oligarch class in Hungary. And then he did a takeover of their equivalent of National Public Radio. Well, the same thing is happening in Turkey. The same thing has already happened in Egypt. Something similar to this is happening in the Philippines. It's happening all over the world. And we're seeing, Bolsonaro in Brazil. And so we're seeing this rush to oligarchy. And Donald Trump, of course, represents a piece of that. A billionaire as president of the United States. How is that not oligarchy? He is an oligarch. We always, we use this word oligarch in reference to people from Russia, right? Which is crazy. We've got oligarchs right here in the United States. Corrupt billionaires who are actively and aggressively and frankly proudly corrupting our political process. So, is Trump a traitor or is he committing treason? I'd say both. You may just say he's a traitor. You may just say he's a criminal or a mob boss. I mean, look at what he did yesterday, saying that the whistleblower and the sources for the whistleblower, that the whistleblower is collecting this information. First of all, they're saying, it's secondhand information. Right, this is what the Republicans and the senators say. Well, it's Hannity and Limbaugh and all these guys. Oh, it's secondhand information. Right, of course it is. Therefore, we need to hear from the primary sources. We need to subpoena the people that he's quoting. He says Barr's up to his eyeballs in this. Bring in Barr. He says the White House lawyers, Pat Cipollone or Cipollone, I'm not sure how you say it, and some of these other guys in the White House. Bring him in and have him testify. Wouldn't you want that if you think it might not be credible because it's secondhand information? Well, yeah, let's get the primary sources. The White House this morning admitted that they're hiding this stuff inside this secure server. They now have a secret server. Isn't that ironic? Donald Trump, who built his political career on complaining about Hillary Clinton's private server, has his own secret server on which he's hiding, quote, politically sensitive documents. Not national security sensitive, politically sensitive. When did the national security apparatus get into politics? I mean, if it's happened before now, that's a problem. Happening now, that's impeachable. That is corruption at an insanely high level. So anyhow, Trump comes out yesterday and he says, this is the equivalent of spying. And you know what we used to do to spies? We used to fry them. I mean, he didn't say we used to fry them. That was left implicit. But keep in mind, You know, the number one lawyer to the mafia in the United States in the 70s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s was Roy Cohn. He was the lawyer to the Gigante family. He was the lawyer to the Trafficante family. I mean, or no, it wasn't Trafficante. In any case, he was the lawyer to the two largest New York mob families. He was famous for it. He was proud of it. And he was also the lawyer to Donald Trump, who was a wannabe New York mobster. And the New York mobsters were big in the real estate business. It's a great way to launder money. As you can see, I mean, Trump and his kids bragging, oh, yeah, we got all this Russian money. And it's not just Russian money. We got Saudi money. And, you know, I love the Saudis. They give me $40-50 million for a condo. Yeah, they bought the entire 45th floor of Trump Tower. It's owned by Saudi Arabia, or by Saudis, or both. So here he is bragging about, yeah, I'm a mob boss. I'm a made man. So what he was doing yesterday in saying that the whistleblower or his sources or both should be executed is witness tampering. It's a federal felony. I mean, can you imagine if you were indicted for a crime and you were to go on national television and say, well, the people who are testifying about me, they should be executed. And keep in mind what happened to, like, Christine Blasey Ford when Donald Trump tweeted about her. She was getting death threats and stalkers. She and her entire family had to go into hiding. Her life is still not back together. So not only is the whistleblower probably in need of the witness protection program, but think about the people who were his sources in the White House, who are thinking, okay, my boss, the President of the United States, just called for my death. That is literally tampering with witnesses in a federal investigation. And we know it's a federal investigation because the Director of National Intelligence, Joseph McGuire, yesterday told us that they had turned this all over to the FBI. It is currently being investigated. Although the FBI works for Bill Barr, so maybe it's not. Maybe they just turn it over to the FBI and comes to a screeching halt and drops into the wastebasket. But here we are. I mean, this should be the second article of impeachment. And then we need to find out, you know, what these other people were doing. We also need to, you know, one of the things in the whistleblower complaint was that this was not the first time Trump has done this. And that now we don't know what this is, right? We do know this is, specifically, he said this is not the first time that politically sensitive conversations with foreign leaders have been moved into this ultra-secure place. And so what does Russia do? They issue a press release saying, well, I hope that he doesn't release conversations with President Putin, which I thought was brilliant. Is this Russia saying, please don't throw us in that briar patch? Like, you know, Trump is no longer useful, or maybe he is, maybe he never was, or maybe it's like time to throw him over the, you know, run over him with the bus or whatever. I mean, you know, are they trying to egg us on, or was this a sincere effort to say, you know, that really should be a privileged communication? Because frankly, it really should be. I mean, at the end of the day, Trump, in fact, the president of Ukraine was saying, I thought he was just going to release his side of the conversation. This guy is so humiliated in his own country because now the whole world, and including everybody in Ukraine, sees a transcript of him basically saying, Mr. President, may I shine your shoes, please? There's a little speck over here. Let me get it for you.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Was it Rick Wilson wrote the book, Everything Trump Touches Dies? Yeah, so something, a variation on that. Yeah, apparently. Welcome back. Welcome back. Sam in Stockbridge, Georgia. Hey, Sam, what's on your mind?
Hey, Tom, how are you, man? It's been a crazy, tough week.
It has. I'm good. I hope you are too, Sam. What's on your mind?
A lot. One thing, first of all, is I want to talk about is Greta Thunberg. I mean,
Yeah.
I think she's a really great, inspiring person. And for me personally, I have Asperger's as well. But what was really disturbing me is just the right-wing people, the trolls, like the commentary from Fox News, the person Michael knows.
Yeah.
I was really disgusted.
Yeah.
And it's just gross. And for me, as a person that's also, I even had to confront people from social media, and they still weren't buying it, and they just kept attacking her.
Yeah, don't let the trolls get you down. We all know who they are and what they're all about. They are despicable. Whether they're attacking her for a position on climate change or they're attacking her because she's an Aspie, it's equally despicable. I mean, these are.
I mean, conservative in general.
Pardon?
I mean, the Republican Party in general is just even Trump.
Yeah. Well, and then on Fox, one of these guys said, "Oh, she's mentally ill," and all this kind. I mean, this is just this is what you expect from people who have nothing to offer us. They have nothing to offer the American people. They have, frankly, nothing to offer the world. They're there to serve the interests of very, very wealthy people, or they're such dupes. And the ones who are serving the interests of very wealthy people are the ones who work for the billionaire Rupert Murdoch, right? And they're showing up on Fox, or they work for the billionaires who own the big networks that are running right-wing radio in every single city in America. But your average garden variety troll on social media is probably just some person with a room temperature IQ who's been sucked in, who's been suckered in, frankly, by these hustlers on right-wing media who are, as I said, working to advance the interests of the billionaire class in the fossil fuel industry. And so they're going after Greta Thunberg. By the way, just FYI, Sam, and I'm guessing you'll appreciate this level of detail. The TH in German and in Swedish is pronounced like a hard T. So thus my name in German is Thomas, and her name is Thunberg. Yeah, Thunberg. No, it's all good. Most people in America don't know that because in English, TH is pronounced as a T, as a th, a soft T. But in any case, don't let it get you down. These people are not worthy of your efforts.
And I think
I'd encourage you not to engage them.
And one more thing, I think in general, we need to raise awareness about disability. We need to wear awareness to this because, I feel like a lot of people are just not really knowing the stigma because, there's a rise of awareness, and I feel like what she's doing is great, but also just disability in general. It's just.
Yeah, I think we need to reframe Asperger's, and I've thought about this for a long time. I jumped into this in the 90s when I reframed ADHD, and I think these are all on the same spectrum of stuff. And Einstein was almost certainly an Aspie. Thomas Edison was probably an Aspie. I mean, there's been a number of very successful people who have literally changed the world in positive ways, who almost certainly had Asperger's, and. I think that makes them superheroes. I mean, Greta refers to it as her super strength, as her superpower, excuse me, and I think she's right. Sam, thank you for the call, and I wish you the very best. We'll be right back. It's 22 minutes of change past the hour. So it's Anything Goes Friday, with special focus on what's going on in the White House and the fact that we've got a guy who is president of the United States who's behaving like John Gotti, who was also represented by Roy Cohn, who was Donald Trump's guy. So pretty bad stuff. Kenyatta in Los Angeles. Hey, Kenyatta, you have some thoughts on this?
I do, Tom. I wanted to say that I'm getting a little perturbed, and I knew this would be an interesting week on your program. I don't always get the chance to catch the whole thing, but I made it a point this week. And yesterday, there were several references and calls and in some of your commentary about Donald Trump being a mob boss. And then later in the program, you said wannabe, and I appreciate you doing that because I want to tell you something real quick. I grew up in an area of Los Angeles with a lot of gangsters. I grew up in a Crip set. Now, I was never in a gang. I went to military school and boarded all week because my father was way scarier than the little thugs in the street. But my point is this. When it comes to gangsters, you got to put in work. Donald Trump's never been in a fist fight in his life. He loves the media referring to him as a mob boss. If you know anything about John Gotti, when you're in the mob, you have to go through the ranks. You have to put in work. You know what I mean by put in work.
Yeah, he worked his way up. He became a made man by killing people.
Exactly. And Donald Trump has probably are you kidding me? I mean, it just incenses me, and I know it's trivial, but I wanted to say that. The second point I wanted to make,
kind of for the record, I would say that he is the boss of a very small crime family. I mean, his daughter, his son-in-law, they've all been implicated in numerous crimes. Many of which go back to Trump. His dad was mobbed up. When you see this documentary, when it comes out in a week or three, Where's My Roy Cohn, you will see about how his father was really in tight with the mafia in the Queens. And
I'm aware of that.
So he's I'd say wannabe mob boss, but he's the head of a very, very small crime family. But he doesn't have the he's not a real mob boss. Just like he's. Well, I was going to say he's not a real president. Of course, he actually sits in the White House.
Listen, great minds think alike.
Yeah, you were just going to say the same thing, right?
Yes, I was.
He's an incompetent mob boss, and he's an incompetent president. I mean, that's what it comes right down to at the end of the day.
Listen, this guy has neither sense enough or courage enough to run bathwater. And I know you're coming up on a hard break, so let me say this to you. The comment, which should disturb everyone in this country, and I've been very concerned about this because Donald Trump, indirect threats to people. He did it at his rallies when he was a candidate for the presidency. Get that guy out of here. Beat that guy up. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And his comment about what we used to do to people that were spies and traitors, let me say this. That is very dangerous stuff because what he was saying was, what miserable drones and traitors have I nourished and brought up in my household who let their Lord be treated in such shameful contempt by a low-born cleric?
Yeah.
In other words,
will no one rid me of this meddlesome priest?
Exactly.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly what's going on. Kenyatta, as usual, you put your finger right on the issue there. I appreciate the call. Good talking to you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We'll be back. It's 27 minutes past the hour, and it's Anything Goes Friday. We're going to be talking to Tom LoBianco, the author of Piety and Power, when we come back from this break, and then I'll be picking up your phone calls. And then in our second hour, we'll have Congressman Ro Khanna with us for the full hour.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
Anything Goes Friday, live on the Thom Hartmann Program. We'll be back. It's Friday. It's the last day of our Fund Drive, the pledge drive here for Free Speech TV. Your last chance to call in and make a contribution or to make a continuing contribution, become a member of the sustaining, members of Free Speech TV, making donations on an ongoing basis. Special thanks, by the way, to Andrew in San Diego, Robert and Alice in San Luis Obispo, Ronald in San Francisco, and Diane in Santa Rosa, who together pulled together $15,000 for a match today. So whatever you give today will be doubled. So your $10 becomes $20, your $500 becomes $1,000, whatever in between or above or below. And so it's a great way to wrap up the pledge drive. Is today the final day of the pledge drive, and also the final day of this extraordinary match with so many thanks to the fine people who helped put it together. So please call now, 877-378-8669, or go to freespeech.org and make your contribution. there's a whole selection of premiums now. With a $20 gift, you get the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker, proud student of Thom Hartmann University. You can also, with the $20 gift, get a window cling that says any functioning adult, or a window cling that says think outside the fox. Ah, I love it. You can get both of those window clings for $35. Also, with the $25 gift, we have the Impeachments. Nice little. I have a feeling someday these memorabilia of the impeachment of Donald Trump are actually going to have a lot of value. Just like today, if you have any of the stickers or buttons or things that go back to the Nixon impeachment efforts, or for that matter, the Clinton ones, they command quite a price in collectors' markets. So, whether these will or not, I don't know. But there's the $30 Trump small hand soap, for example. Isn't that cool? And it'll keep for quite some time. So also with a $50 gift, you get a Change the Channel Free Speech TV tote bag. And keep in mind, your $50 gift becomes $100 today. I mean, it's to Free Speech TV. You still get the tote bag, but it becomes $100. With a $100 gift, you get the Any Functional Adult long sleeve shirt, sizes small through XX large. With $150, you get my new book, which is coming out next week. Or it starts shipping next week from, online booksellers, and bookstores will be putting them on the shelves next week, next Tuesday, I think it is. And that is The Hidden History of the Supreme Court and the Betrayal of America. With a $250 gift, you can participate in a virtual meet and greet where you'll see me, I'll hear you, and a collection, a group of people who make this contribution, and we'll just talk about what's going on in the world and whatever you'd like, actually. And I will try as candidly as possible to answer any questions you may have. And with a $1,000 gift, kind of same thing, only in person, right here in Portland. If you want to visit the Rose City, it's a great place. Come on in, hang out in the studio for an hour. We'll go next door and have lunch. And of course, with the $360 gift, we have the Study Up package with Professor Tom. That is the bumper sticker, proud student of Thom Hartmann University, plus 3 of my books. ADHD, Hunter to Farmer's World. This literally just came out last month. It's a brand new book. In a way, we took my original book on ADD and basically completely rewrote it because it's a new time and we've learned a lot more since I first wrote it. And it's, so much has validated my original hypothesis that ADHD is not, in most cases, is not a disease or an illness or a dysfunction. It's just a different way of having your brain work. And that in some professions, like being a talk show host, it can actually be an advantage. Also, Walking Your Blues Away, the book on how to deal with stress and trauma, and which isn't a book on so much walking as it is mental exercises. And the Thom Hartmann Reader, which is a collection of pieces from a whole bunch of different of my books. That's with $360. Excuse me. So those are the premiums. But, the bottom line is Free Speech TV needs your help. We need progressive media. We need progressive media to be strong and stable and secure and to last and to persist and to grow. And all of those things can happen if enough of you call right now, 877-378-8669, and make a contribution to Free Speech TV. Whether it's $10 or $10,000, it all is really important. And frankly, a lot of $10 gifts are really, really important because it broadens the base of support for Free Speech TV. And not to say that larger gifts aren't important also, but if all you can give is $10 or $25 or $35, please call now. Last chance. Your money will be doubled. This is and thanks again to Andrew, Robert, and Alice, Ronald, and Diane. Please call now, 877-378-8669. 877-378-8669. Thank you. Hartmann here with you, and on the line with us, hang on just a second here, let me get everything right, is Tom LoBianco. He is the author of a new book, Piety and Power, Mike Pence and the Taking of the White House. Tom, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Tom. Good to be here.
Thanks for joining us. First of all, before we get into some of my questions specifically about how your book characterizes Mike Pence and what you learned when you did all this research on his life, I'm curious your thoughts and also your knowledge. You know what you've as an observer of Pence, but also as I'm assuming somebody who reads the news like all the rest of us do. Pence, back on September 2nd, if my memory serves me correctly, gave a press conference in Poland, and this was subsequently, this was substantially after the Trump's conversation with Zelensky and Giuliani's multiple contacts with Zelensky's people and the invocation of Bill Barr and all this other stuff. Pence gave this press conference, and he mentioned that specifically that he was talking with Zelensky's people about, quote, corruption in Ukraine, end quote, and which we now know is a code word for find some dirt on Joe Biden's son, Hunter. I'm curious your take on all this and how up to his eyeballs you think Pence is in this whole mess.
Sure, yeah, I remember that, and I read that transcript and from the White House printout of that press conference, and I will say this: it looks like he's more exposed than he ever was during the entire Trump-Russia Mueller probe. He met with Zelensky. Now, two things to point out here. He gets two questions about this, right? The first question is, did he bring up Joe Biden at all? And he says no. So definitive, no. Second question, what did you talk about? Well, we talked about corruption in Ukraine. So now we know that that's part of this entire push by Trump, Giuliani, apparently Bill Barr. Bill Barr's people say that the Justice Department say that never happened. But Pence, for the first time, looks like he could be exposed here. And of course, Trump himself said that, hey, I'll release transcripts of Pence's phone calls and meetings gladly. So Trump seems ready to put him out there as well.
Well, to what extent do you think that, there's been some conversations about Trump wanting to replace Pence on the ticket with, we're not sure who, possibly with the former UN ambassador. But what's their relationship like? And if Trump starts going down, is Pence going to, throw him under the bus? Is he going to step up? I mean, what might we expect given Pence's history?
I think there's a great sort of barometer for this, and I report this out in my book, Access Hollywood Weekend, as we call it, right? October 7th, 2016, the Washington Post reports on these explosive tapes where Donald Trump is bragging about molesting women and, how he uses Tic Tacs to get it done, and it's just explosive stuff. In the hours after that happens, Republican Party donors call up Pence's campaign and say, we're ready to replace Mike Pence or Trump on the ticket with Mike Pence, make him the Republican nominee. Pence's people say no. And here's why. Because, he could have become the nominee, but he would have gone down in flames, more than likely. Also, he would have lost the support of the Trump base of voters. So always keep this in mind. Look down the road. They're thinking about running for the White House in their own right. That's the goal. So if you assume that, then everything becomes about who controls the Trump base of voters. And in order to do that, you have to be unflinchingly loyal to Donald Trump. And I just don't see, Pence. I've heard these stories. We've all heard them before. There's rumors that Pence wants to push him off the cliff, stick the knife in, et cetera, toss him under the bus. I don't see that as being practical or realistic politically, at least not for what their goals are.
Yeah, very interesting. You talk in your book about Donald Trump wanting Ivanka to be vetted for vice president. What?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that happened. It was shut down fairly quickly, although Trump did go to his team with the request. As I understand it, they gingerly told him that nepotism would probably be a problem in the general election. I mean, on top of everything else. Yeah.
Yeah. This doomsday theology thing. I've spent a lot of time in the course of my life and even worked briefly in Israel.
Interesting.
And one of the things that is the people that, I mean, you walk 10 blocks and you always run across these people. There are all these white Christian evangelicals, hardcore evangelicals who are constantly doing pilgrimages and stuff over there. And what they will tell you, and they will tell you enthusiastically and aggressively, and many of them have told me on many occasions, that their understanding of the Bible is that in order to bring Jesus back, a couple of things have to happen. The capital of Israel has to be moved to Jerusalem, and the Second Temple has to be rebuilt. I was in Israel just a few weeks after Alan Goodman tried to do this back in, I think it was the 80s, where he just ran into the Temple Mount, threw up a tent, and then started shooting, killed a bunch of people.
Wow.
And he thought the tent would be the Second Temple, and that immediately the sky would open and Jesus would come down, and of course he got taken away. But there's this doomsday theology about and then of course a war will erupt in the Middle East. There'll only be 144,000 Israelis who survive, Jewish Israelis. They will all convert to Christianity, and then ta-da, Jesus appears. And it's pretty toxic theology, but a lot of folks in Israel are more than happy to take their money. How does Donald Trump and Mike Pence fit into this?
Yeah, let me point something out, and this is something early in my reporting. I sort of jumped down that rabbit hole because I wanted to understand sort of the foundations of the Christian right. Some of the foundations, not everything, but it is a key portion of it. And I wanted to see where Mike Pence fit into that. So let's talk about his salvation experience for a second here. 1978, he goes to the Ichthus Music Festival in Wilmore, Kentucky. It's right outside Lexington. And it's sort of like it's like Jesus Woodstock, and he has this experience. And at that same time, Paul Waveridge and Morton Blackwell take a drive down to Lynchburg, Virginia, around about the same time, to meet with Jerry Falwell and basically create the moral majority. They link up the conservative movement with this evangelical right, sort of Southern Baptist, more Southern Baptist-inspired evangelicalism. So I really wanted to understand, so is Pence a theocrat, right? That question has been floated. We hear that very often. And let me just say that as best I can tell, the answer is no. And there's two reasons why I come to that conclusion. Number one, his friends told me that he does not personally get into a lot of this. If your viewers want to ask about this, check Google premillennial dispensationalism, and that's sort of the theological.
So, are you saying that you think that they moved the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem not because they were kowtowing to the theocrats in the United States, the evangelicals who want the end of the world to come? By the way, I should note Goodman was actually a Messianic Jew, as I recall. I mean, there's also a sect in Judaism that there's bumper stickers, Mashiach now. But in any case, are you suggesting that they moved the embassy as a sop to Netanyahu to help him out politically, or for basically more secular reasons, as opposed to this was their way of tossing a bone to the evangelicals?
Well, I think it's a couple of things. Number one is, it is kowtowing politically, and you see that when you have when they move the embassy, and the first person you have speak there, or not the first person, but you have the invocation given by Robert Jeffress, who's sort of the updated version of Pat Robertson, right. Jerry Falwell, that type, and he believes in this, and he actually flicks at that prophecy, that belief that there will be the doomsday, the end of the world, as long as they repopulate Jerusalem with Jewish people. So he actually talks about that at the opening of the embassy last year. My understanding, though, is that Pence himself does not really buy into this. And I was talking with someone who has helped him out over the years, and we had a very serious conversation. I asked him, does Pence really buy into this, that there will be, what it says in Revelation, there will be bowls of fire poured forth from the heavens, and that, there will be the tribulation, the rapture of the tribulation, a judgment day, and then, ultimately the return of Jesus. And, aren't there more immediate concerns about that too? Creating a serious holy war by taking sides in this, the split in the Middle East.
Right.
And this person he said, look, who doesn't pander?
Yeah.
That's how they see it.
Yeah, it's amazing. And, I thought your reference to Pence, and actually the story about how Pence came up with this racist ad with the, against his opponent in the 1990 congressional race where, the Arab would take off his glasses and there'd be another pair of glasses behind. And this was actually Pence's idea, and his people were like, no. And the media, as I recall in your book, it said something like, this was something, the production qualities were like what would come out of the local gun store, but it worked.
That's right. Yeah, Dan Carpenter, a longtime columnist out in Indianapolis, left-leaning columnist for the Indianapolis Star. I'm trying to think how he put it. He said that it looks like an attempt at Saturday Night Live with the quality production of Don's Gun Store.
Yeah, there you go.
Right, Don.
I thought that was an amazing story. I'm moving along here because I'm going to hit a break in a few minutes.
Sure.
But back years ago, it must have been 6-8 years ago, maybe longer than that, probably longer than that, I debated Mike Pence at the Heritage Foundation. And no, it was at a Talkers event. It was at a talk radio convention but put on by Talkers magazine. And maybe a decade before that, I had written an op-ed or I'd written an article that peripherally mentioned the Fairness Doctrine. And at that time, when I first wrote that a decade earlier, I had bought Rush Limbaugh's line that the Fairness Doctrine, that the end of the Fairness Doctrine is what made him possible, and that the Fairness Doctrine somehow mandated equality or balance, political balance in media. It's absolutely not what the Fairness Doctrine says at all. But anyhow, I was debating Mike Pence about the Fairness Doctrine and saying we need to bring it back. And he pulls out this piece of paper and he reads this statement about the Fairness Doctrine, making Limbaugh possible and all this kind of stuff, and how getting rid of it was such a good thing. And then at the very end, he says, "You wrote that." And I'm like, yeah, you got me. I did write that. And I was misinformed back then. And I have since informed myself. But he says, but you wrote that. And the whole room, I mean, most of the people in the room were right-wing talk show hosts, and they're all, applauding Pence. And I'm just like, he just slammed me. I mean, this guy does his homework. He's a very canny politician. He's very smart. And I think that we diminish him or take him for granted or pat him on the head at considerable peril.
Yeah, look, and if that's the metric that he uses for things, I mean, does that mean that we read his websites from the 1990s where he's talking about gay conversion therapy, for instance, or, not giving AIDS funding to the Ryan White AIDS
right, or tobacco doesn't cause cancer? That was in 2000, as I recall. He wrote an op-ed
That's interesting.
about that.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. He did that to you. I didn't realize that. Wow.
Yeah, the video of it probably lives over at talkers.com. I'm sure it's still out there.
Oh, interesting.
But it was, it gave me an insight into, because I went into it, relatively unprepared, just thinking, okay, I'm going to be debating another right-wing politician, which I do all the time, and usually, without a great deal of difficulty. And stylistically, at least, and I think, in some ways, even on the details, Pence kicked my butt. And it just really surprised me. I walked away from that thinking, boy, this guy, there's more to this guy than I thought there was. He's not just another right-wing crackpot. Tom LaBianco, the new book is Piety and Power, Mike Pence and the Taking of the White House. Tom, thanks for dropping by.
Awesome. Thank you, Tom.
Good talking with you. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archive.
It's Anything Goes Friday, back with your calls right after this. Stick around. And welcome back. Scott in Burien, Washington. Hey, Scott, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom, how you doing?
Good. What's up?
Quick question. And you can quell my fears, certainly. You don't think there's a chance that Putin and, similar goons have already told Trump that no matter what happens, we got you covered in 2020? And the reason why I say that is, could that be the reason, besides being just beyond mentally sick, that Trump keeps on breaking the law, not thinking of consequences or anything related to that?
Yeah. Scott, you're thinking like a normal person. And, that, hey, if I'm going to break the law, I want to make sure that I've got a safety net or a plan B or somebody's helping me out or, whatever. Donald Trump doesn't think like a normal person. Donald Trump is a serial criminal. He gets a thrill out of breaking the law. This is what he was bragging to Billy Bush about, that he can just walk up and grab women, by the private parts, and you get away with it. Like he was just kind of amazed and proud of himself. He gets a rush from it. He's addicted to it, and that's why he keeps breaking the law. He certainly, his daddy gave him, the equivalent of several $1 billion. It was about a little over 400 million back in the day, and he has wasted the vast majority of it, and it appears that he may even have a negative net worth. He might not even be a billionaire. He might not even have as much, he might not have the net worth of you and me, and of average people. And although we won't know until we see his tax returns, and perhaps more than that. But he does this, and he keeps screwing up and starting stupid businesses and having them fail because he gets high off it. So I think to think that Putin has to backstop him or anybody has to backstop him is a mistake. He is convinced of his own invincibility, and I think this may be the first time in his life he's come up against something he can't spin his way out of, lie his way out of, or bluster his way out of. And he's trying all three right now. He's spinning, lying, and blustering just as much as he possibly can. But he's come up against Nancy Pelosi, and she is a rock. He's banging his head on a rock, and it's not going to work for him. And
are you reading anything? Sorry, are you reading anything to the closed door meetings that he's had with him? Could that have been discussed? Dude, I got your back.
No, I doubt it. I mean, I'm guessing that if there was any sort of "I got your back" conversation between him and President Putin, it was more like President Putin saying to him, when you finish with this gig as president, we would love to have you build a tower in Moscow. It'll be $1 billion project, and it'll make you even richer than you already are. And I'd be pleased to live in the apartment on the top floor, which will make it the premier place in Moscow. I mean, that sort of thing I could imagine. I mean, the president, Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, was almost saying that to Trump. I mean, you read that transcript, it's so embarrassing for Zelensky how he was, just bowing and scraping and praising, and it was really rather sad. And Zelensky has come out and said that, he is embarrassed by that. Well, he hasn't said specifically that he's embarrassed, but he said that he thought that the only part that was going to be released in the transcript was Trump's side of it. Yeah, I think he's probably horrified. Yeah. So, Scott, that's my take on it. Scott, thanks a lot for the call. We'll be back. It's 52 minutes past the hour. Stick around. So Andy Borowitz is speculating right now that, his headline, Trump's lawyers argue that Trump can't be impeached because he was never actually legitimately elected. And, the majority of people in the United States did not vote for Donald Trump. In fact, the majority voted for Hillary Clinton by a 3 million vote margin. And, and there's a lot of questions about Trump's legitimacy. I think this is fascinating. Anyhow, Jeff in San Francisco. Hey, Jeff, what's up?
Yeah, I just want to go off on my rant about the public bank in California.
Yeah.
AB 857 right now is on Gavin Newsom's desk. And if you're in California, call him at 916-445-2821. So it's just amazing what we can do. We have, all 10 major cities in California are backing this. And you've got me turned on to this by having Ellen Brown on your show before. And I've read a couple of her books, and she makes the point that, in the United States right now, there's $4.3 trillion in public pensions. If we put that in a public bank and rent that out at 9 times that amount, even half of that, you're talking $20 to $40 trillion. You could put in infrastructure, and there's so many things we can do with that.
Oh, the New York banks are making billions of dollars a week on the money that they're handling for California. I mean, it's the 8th largest economy in the world. It certainly should have its own banking system, and North Dakota has proven since 1900 whatever it was. That this is viable, that it works, and that it's good for the state. It's good for democracy, in fact. Jeff's spot on. Thanks for the heads up on that. Rob in Iron Mountain, Minnesota. Hey, Rob, what's on your mind today? Rob? Rob is apparently not listening. Dennis in Pine Top, Arizona. Hey, Dennis, what's on your mind?
Morning, Tom. Thanks for taking the call. I grew up in Flint, Michigan. Same time you grew up in Lansing, Michigan. My dad's a tool and die maker union. We had vacation property at Holton Lake. We're very similar.
Yeah, it's amazing what the middle class used to be before Reagan came along and destroyed it. Anyhow, you wanted to talk about removing Trump? We just have a minute here till we're going to hit a break.
As a combat zone veteran, Agent Orange, which I consider friendly fire, and ex-police officer. The president will be removed from office just prior to inauguration by the military police. He'll be charged with conspiracy with intent to commit treason. It'll be reduced to obstruction, and that will take down the hierarchy with him. We will end up going green with the infrastructure and union labor.
From your lips to God's ears, Dennis. Are you suggesting that the UCMJ, the Unified Code of Military Justice, should apply to Donald Trump? He's never served in the military, to the best of my knowledge.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It will work through the IG.
The Inspector General of what? For the military? For the Defense Department? Huh.
Yes, sir.
Interesting. Well, I don't know enough about the military structure and military law to be able to address that, but the civilian way that you address a president who is committing high crimes and misdemeanors is you impeach him. The next question, particularly given that Donald Trump indirectly invoked Roy Cohn and the Rosenbergs yesterday, is if he has actually committed treason, as Peter DeFazio, Oregon Congressman Peter DeFazio suggested in the House of Representatives yesterday on the floor of the House. If he has committed treason, should there also be criminal charges for treason brought against him? And if so, how and through what mechanism? I don't know the answer to that. It's a good question, though. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
Every day here on the Thom Hartmann Program, Louise and I and our team, Sean, Nate, Shira, Dave, Chase, Sue, Nigel, Ron. We all work to put together the very, very best show we possibly can. And there's an enormous amount of work that goes into the show. And one of the things that comes out of that is a lot of content, a lot of specific information that we go through and we dig out and we want to share with you. And Sue puts that into our newsletter every week. And I think you will, if you don't already receive our newsletter, it comes in email every day, about an hour after we're off the air, or maybe a couple hours after we're off the air. And Sue goes through and pulls literally every link to every story that we talked about and puts it into the newsletter. It's free. We don't sell a list or anything. You complete safety and security. There's no charge. There's no nothing. Just plug in your email address over at thomhartmann.com. And you get signed up for the newsletter. It's all fairly obvious. You'll see it on the website. So check it out, thomhartmann.com. Thank you. It's Friday. It's the last day of our Fund Drive, the pledge drive here for Free Speech TV. Your last chance to call in and make a contribution or to make a continuing contribution, become a member of the sustaining, members of Free Speech TV, making donations on an ongoing basis. Special thanks, by the way, to Andrew in San Diego, Robert and Alice in San Luis Obispo, Ronald in San Francisco, and Diane in Santa Rosa, who together pulled together $15,000 for a match today. So whatever you give today will be doubled. So your $10 becomes $20, or $500 becomes $1,000, whatever in between or above or below. And so it's a great way to wrap up the pledge drive. Is today the final day of the pledge drive, and also the final day of this extraordinary match, with so many thanks to the fine people who helped put it together. So please call now, 877-378-8669, or go to freespeech.org and make your contribution. There's a whole selection of premiums now. With a $20 gift, you get the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker, proud student of Thom Hartmann University. You can also, with the $20 gift, get a window cling that says any functioning adult, or a window cling that says think outside the fox. I love it. You can get both of those window clings for $35. Also, with the $25 gift, we have the Impeachments. Nice little. I have a feeling someday these memorabilia of the impeachment of Donald Trump are actually going to have a lot of value. Just like today, if you have any of the stickers or buttons or things that go back to the Nixon impeachment efforts, or for that matter, the Clinton ones, they command quite a price in collectors' markets. So, whether these will or not, I don't know. But there's the $30 Trump small hand soap, for example. Isn't that cool? And it'll keep for quite some time. So also with a $50 gift, you get a Change the Channel Free Speech TV tote bag. And keep in mind, your $50 gift becomes $100 today. I mean, that's to Free Speech TV. You still get the tote bag, but it becomes $100. With a $100 gift, you get the Any Functional Adult long sleeve shirt, sizes small through XXL large. With $150, you get my new book, which is coming out next week. Or it starts shipping next week from, online booksellers, and bookstores will be putting them on the shelves next week, next Tuesday, I think it is. And that is The Hidden History of the Supreme Court and the Betrayal of America. With a $250 gift, you can participate in a virtual meet and greet where you'll see me, I'll hear you, and a collection, a group of people who make this contribution, and we'll just talk about what's going on in the world and whatever you'd like, actually. And I will try as candidly as possible to answer any questions you may have. And with a $1,000 gift, kind of same thing, only in person, right here in Portland. If you want to visit the Rose City, it's a great place. Come on in, hang out in the studio for an hour. We'll go next door and have lunch. And of course, with the $360 gift, we have the Study Up package with Professor Tom. That is the bumper sticker, proud student of Thom Hartmann University, plus 3 of my books. ADHD, Hunter to Farmer's World. This literally just came out last month. It's a brand new book. In a way, we took my original book on ADD and basically completely rewrote it, because it's it's a new time, and we've learned a lot more since I first wrote it. And it's, so much has validated my original hypothesis that ADHD is not, in most cases, is not a disease or a illness or a dysfunction. It's just a different way of having your brain work. And that in some professions, like being a talk show host, it can actually be an advantage. Also, Walking Your Blues Away, the book on how to deal with stress and trauma, and which isn't a book on so much walking as it is mental exercises. And the Thom Hartmann Reader, which is a collection of pieces from a whole bunch of different of my books. That's with $360. Excuse me. So those are the premiums. But, the bottom line is Free Speech TV needs your help. We need progressive media. We need progressive media to be strong and stable and secure and to last and to persist and to grow. And all of those things can happen if enough of you call right now, 877-378-8669, and make a contribution to Free Speech TV. Whether it's $10 or $10,000, it all is really important. And frankly, a lot of $10 gifts are really, really important because it broadens the base of support for Free Speech TV. And not to say that larger gifts aren't important also, but if all you can give is $10 or $25 or $35, please call now. Last chance. Your money will be doubled. This is and thanks again to Andrew, Robert, and Alice, Ronald, and Diane. Please call now, 877-378-8669. 877-378-8669. Thank you.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome back. On the line with us for this hour, we're going to get back to Anything Goes Friday in the third hour of our program, but for this hour, Congressman Ro Khanna is with us. He is the Vice Chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. He represents California's 17th District, Silicon Valley, in the U.S. House of Representatives. And his website is Khanna, KHANNA.house.gov. You can tweet him at Rep. Ro Khanna. Congressman Khanna, welcome back to the program. Kind of a quiet week in Washington, D.C., huh?
Tom, well, it's always good to be on. This has been quite the week. The momentum has now shifted to the vast majority of the House caucus supporting the impeachment inquiry and wanting articles to be submitted to the House for a vote before Thanksgiving. I mean, I think I was talking to some of the leading chairs, and they think we have what we need. We should get the articles and have a House vote.
Yeah, it's remarkable. And now this morning, the White House just acknowledged that, yes, he has moved these politically sensitive documents to a secure server. Shades of, lock her up. I mean, it's just amazing. Anyhow, you're with us for the hour to take phone calls from our listeners, so let's pick up some phone calls here. Karen in St. Cloud, Minnesota, you're on the air with Congressman Khanna. Karen?
Sandstone, Minnesota. Yeah, hi.
Okay, there you go. Hey, Karen, what's up?
I'm in Sandstone, Minnesota.
Oh, okay. Thank you for that.
But I'm glad I'm talking to a progressive, because now that the proverbial stuff is hitting the wall, the Republicans are going to be scrambling for ways to attack the progressives by using socialism and abortion, and I think we need to turn that around on them, like saying, well, Jesus was a socialist. Are you anti-Jesus? And abortion, are we going to start requiring that Israel stop providing abortions for its people before they get help from us? Are you going to do that, Republicans, like you've been doing to states in our
So
own
are these?
country?
Are you? Well, let's let Congressman Khanna, riff on the topics that you've raised, if he would like.
Well, Karen, I appreciate you raising that, and you're right. The Trump White House is going to start attacking progressives. In fact, I had a video featured in the Trump War Room pulling quotes of mine out of context, implying that I had mischaracterized the evidence. So they're going to start attacking progressives for sure. But I think the way we respond is with the facts that the president has admitted that he basically sought the help of a foreign leader to get dirt on his political rival. And then we respond with our agenda, which is helping increase wages for middle-class families and working-class families, lowering the cost of prescription drugs, providing Medicare for all, free public college. It's important that we be clear on how we're working to improve people's lives.
Len in Woodmere, New York. You're on the air with Congressman Khanna.
Quick scary thing. There was a Trump ad on YouTube before they put through your show. But the reason I'm calling is I want to know, before this guy is thrown out completely, and you're on the Budget, Armed Services, and Oversight, which all are related to, I want to know how and why suddenly the United States is paying the Trump Hotel in Scotland.
Well, and it's wrong. I mean, it's a violation of the emoluments clause that the administration has been directing or approving people to stay in the president's hotels. The challenge is that there are so many things that this president has done wrong, but I think what we have to do is focus on the current offense, which has cut across party affiliation in certain cases and ideology. Every person I've talked to can't believe that he was on a phone call with a foreign leader asking for information about Joe Biden. So that'll be the focus, but we will also address in the hearings these issues about the emoluments clause and the president directing people to stay at his own hotels.
Andy in Fort Davis, Texas. You're on the air with Congressman Khanna.
Hi, Tom. Hi, Congressman Khanna. I had a question. First, Congressman Khanna, have you read the whistleblower report yet?
I have.
The question I had is really kind of a Ukrainian history question. I understand that Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State after Viktor Yanukovych left the country with most of the money, and that Hillary helped in the State Department, helped set up kind of a committee or an organization to look at corruption in the country. And mostly what they appeared to be doing was trying to chase down and identify where the money had gone to so they could actually run the country. And then it seems that all of this seems to be very much related. In other words, Paul Manafort was working for Viktor Yanukovych, and then somebody inside the Ukraine released what they called the Black Ledger, which listed out all of the monies that Yanukovych had paid to people.
Including Manafort.
The House in, pardon?
Including Manafort.
Including Manafort. And then, of course, all of this...
so what's the question, Andy? Let's get right to this.
What my question is the House looking at, is this impeachment looking at this relationship between Paul Manafort and how it tracks all the way back to Manafort supposedly working with Yanukovych?
Okay. Congressman?
Well, we will investigate fully what took place and Manafort's relationship or Yanukovych, or why that trilateral deal that Yanukovych wanted with Russia and Europe fell apart. I mean, there's a lot to be investigated, but that will be separate from the issue of impeachment, where you have the president admitting to the entire country that he has a phone call with the foreign leader and is pressuring him for dirt on his political rival. That in itself is an abuse of office, and that's going to be the central focus of the inquiry. But other committees will also be looking more deeply into what happened in Ukraine.
I'm curious, Congressman, your thoughts on Oregon Congressman Peter DeFazio using the word treason on the floor of the House yesterday to describe Trump's actions.
Well, I would say it's an abuse of his constitutional office, and that's what Nixon was impeached for. One of the articles of impeachment was abuse of office. To prove a crime, other things you have to get the prosecutors. It'll be a drawn-out process. What I would focus on is he took a oath of office to protect the United States Constitution and our national security. He violated that by his own admission by seeking a foreign leader to get dirt on his political rival. That's why he has abused the office and why we need to draw up articles.
Yeah, I'm with you. Gail in, click the button here. Gail in Antelope, California. You're on the air with Congressman Khanna.
Hi, Congressman. Thank you for all the work you do, incidentally. I have a question for you. Last night I watched on the national news, they showed a list of all of the different people that are involved in this treasonous conspiracy, and I saw that Mike Pence's name was up here. So nobody has really said anything about his role in this, and I'm kind of curious as to how he's involved. And the question is, if they impeach Trump, would they automatically impeach him, too, for being part of this?
Which would make Nancy Pelosi president.
Yes,
but he did.
Gracious.
I'm sorry. On September 2nd, he did hold a press conference in Poland and say that he had talked with people in Ukraine about finding corruption in Ukraine, which we now know is code for Joe Biden crimes.
Grace, you raise a very good question. We do need to know what Mike Pence's role has been in pressuring any Ukrainian officials for a corruption probe on Hunter Biden or Biden. But I think let's move sequentially. Let's first direct our attention on the president, make sure that we are comprehensive and expeditious on that. But certainly there needs to be questions asked about the vice president and his role.
Jeanette in Spirit Lake, Idaho. You're on the air with Congressman Khanna.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Congressman. Being in a red state here, we need to win all 50 states, and we need to win the narrative in the media. And don't you think that it would be really beneficial if the progressives consistently always equate, democratic socialism with FDR, FDR, democratic socialism. And then also the other big narrative, media talking point that we just are losing is the gun issue. Democrats, don't you think it would be beneficial for Democrats just to come out and say, we do not want to take away your guns? Obviously, the AR-15.
Now, what state are you in?
I'm in North Idaho.
Yeah. Well, you raise some very good points. I mean, I agree with you. I mean, most Democrats start out, as did President Obama, by saying we believe in the Second Amendment. We aren't going to be taking away your guns. What we're talking about is getting rid of weapons of war and the assault weapons ban, not having people have magazine clips that allow them to shoot multiple fast rounds, making sure that you have background checks, just like you would have background checks for anything else. But obviously, I don't think there is any Democrat in the House or in the presidential field who wouldn't say that the Democratic Party isn't going to take away guns based on confiscation. I mean, that is not what the party believes in. And secondly, you're absolutely right that a lot of the economic policies that Senator Sanders has been talking about are based on FDR's economic Bill of Rights. FDR talked about every person having a right to a job, having a right to health care, having a right to education, having a right to a good wage. That FDR understood that to be truly free as an American, you had to have some basic economic security, and we ought to be appealing to that message.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Congressman Ro Khanna taking your calls for the hour. We'll be back with more of your calls for him in just a moment. And welcome back. Dennis in Aptos, California. You're on the air with Congressman Khanna.
Yeah, hi. In regards to Trump, I don't know if Pompeo or Barr or Pence would be targeted as well for impeachment, but I'm going to ask this question. Suppose we're on the brink of impeaching Trump 2 months from now, let's just say, and on the day before the vote, he decides to resign his office, and if Pence isn't targeted, Pence just goes ahead and pardons him. And if he's pardoned, then he can't even be indicted when he is out of office. What do you think of that possibility?
That's the Nixon scenario.
It's something, Dennis, that we have to be concerned about, but our immediate goal needs to be to hold this president accountable, do our constitutional duty, and maybe the Congress needs to amend or have clear statutes that address this. But the scenario you outline is very possible.
George in Portland, Oregon. You're on the air with Congressman Khanna.
Good morning, guys. I know that it sounds like you've got a slam dunk and you are sort of picking the battle, but will you be able to see his tax returns and an unredacted Mueller report during the inquiry?
We are going to continue to push for that. We're going to continue to push for the Mueller report. We're going to continue to push for the tax returns, but we're not going to wait on that to act. If we continue to wait and take this to the courts and have stonewalling and months go by, then you're soon going to get to the Iowa election, Iowa caucus, and it's going to become too late. So we need to act decisively, but also continue the investigation.
Joe in Cupertino, California. You're on the air with your congressman.
Congressman Khanna, Tom, thank you again for taking my call. Congressman, I look so forward to seeing you at Rignard this Thursday. I'd love to shake your hand. My question is, the Third Amendment, the second paragraph, talks about the Congress shall have the power to declare punishment of treason, but no attainer of treason shall work corruption of blood or forfeiture except during the life of the person attained. I'm not sure if I understand the meaning of that. I looked it up, and I mean, does this mean that he who receives gains in office can't pass that to his family? Or is there another interpretation?
So the corruption of blood phrase, as you're trying to figure out?
Right.
Yeah.
It says the biggest part is the life of the person attained. I don't know what that signifies. Could you answer that? Or I'm sorry if it's too much. I'm just
Joe,
I didn't understand.
I don't know if Tom is a constitutional scholar in his own right. I would have to ask staff about what the interpretation is, because I don't want to give you an answer on the Third Amendment that's not accurate. I'm happy to get back to you. Tom, do you know?
I don't. I honestly don't. Yeah. It's not something I've ever looked into. Although, it seems like a timely question right now. It
is. We're gonna, Joe. You'll see me back in the district. I'm gonna ask staff to look at it, and let's see if we can get you an answer.
Yeah. We just have 10 seconds to the break. Generally, the definition of treason is thought to be, aid and comfort to an enemy during time of war. Is it not?
Is it that specific, or is it just aiding an enemy even to undermine the United States? I think I do think it's important to understand the exact definition.
Yeah, and that's what I don't know either. And this is, I guess we're all going to be looking into this. It's a fascinating question. We'll be back. It's 21 minutes past the hour. Congressman Ro Khanna, the Vice Chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, taking your calls for the hour. Stick around. Every day here on the Thom Hartmann Program, Louise and I and our team, Sean, Nate, Shira, Dave, Chase, Sue, Nigel, Ron, we all work to put together the very, very best show we possibly can. And there's an enormous amount of work that goes into the show. And one of the things that comes out of that is a lot of content, a lot of specific information that we go through and we dig out and, we want to share with you. And Sue puts that into our newsletter every week. And I think you will, if you don't already receive our newsletter, it comes in email every day, about an hour after we're off the air, or maybe a couple hours after we're off the air. And Sue goes through and pulls literally every link to every story that we talked about and puts it into the newsletter. It's free. We don't sell the list or anything. You complete safety and security. There's no charge. There's no nothing. Just, plug in your email address over at thomhartmann.com. And you get signed up for the newsletter. It's all fairly obvious. You'll see it on the website. So check it out, thomhartmann.com. Thank you.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Code time. Welcome back. Congressman Ro Khanna taking your calls for the hour. And Noah in Ontario, California. Hey, Noah, you're on the air with Congressman Khanna.
How's it going, Tom? How's it going, Congressman Khanna?
Good.
I was wondering, is there a theme that you guys are doing, like a branding type of a setup? Like Superman has kryptonite, and I was wondering if Trump can have, like, plutonium and Ukrainium as his weakness.
Okay. Theme the impeachment? Congressman?
I'm sorry, I missed that. No, what
I think
impeachment?
he was. I think it was more a joke than anything else. But he was saying, let's brand the impeachment. But you know.
I see with the kryptonite.
Yeah.
Well, no, I think what we're trying to do is have a very simple message on impeachment, which is president admitted, dirt from foreign leader. Try to use a few words, but I'm open to suggestions.
Yeah. Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Dave, you're on the air with Congressman Khanna.
Hey, I appreciate you taking my call. I was listening to the interview with the author on the Mike Pence thing earlier, and it got me to thinking. It was hard to tell from the context of the interview, but do you think that his religion or his Christianity is an inherently negative quality that he has? And then my next question would be, do you think that that's a negative quality, a candidate's religion overall? Would you say that's a negative quality for them?
Dave, I don't. I think that we have to respect people of faith. We need to respect people of faith participating in politics and their views. And the important thing, though, is that people's faith, in my view, should also be in our constitutional democracy and liberal democracy, and that's what Abraham Lincoln called a political religion. But I don't question people's faith in politics.
Rob in Mesa, Arizona. You're on the air with Congressman Khanna.
Yes, thanks. Hey, I've got a comment and then my question. The comment is, when you guys roll out all these facts, please include the timelines wherever possible, because that's where Fox News and conspiracy theorists take advantage. They leave out the timelines. And then the Biden son is a perfect example of, like, when you leave the timeline out, it looks pretty incriminating. So that being said, just make sure that the timeline goes along with the facts and the data points that are going to be presented during this process. My question is this. Now, when you start putting people under oath and question them, like William Barr, are you going to use a sergeant of arms to arrest these people when they don't answer questions?
Dave, I agree with you that we need to put the facts out. We need to put them out simply, and that we need to put a timeline out. That's a great suggestion. In terms of the sergeant of arms, the speaker does have that power. If someone is defying a subpoena to threaten to bring that person in for a sergeant of arms, I don't think that that's going to, in practice, be used. I think it's far more likely that we would just impeach the person or hold them in contempt. And that's already been done in the Oversight Committee with Bill Barr.
Yeah, we just have 30 seconds to the break here. I noticed that the 7 national security Democrats, these freshmen who were all military or ex-CIA, FBI, whatever, specifically mentioned inherent contempt in their op-ed in the New York Times. Yeah, and apparently there's inherent contempt, criminal contempt, and civil contempt. Criminal contempt has to run through Bill Barr. Civil contempt can take years in the courts, and so they're arguing for inherent contempt. Your thoughts?
Tom, well, they've been a game changer. I mean, when the 7 national security Democrats came out for the impeachment inquiry, and when they spoke in caucus and said they represent Trump plus 7 districts, but they're going to stand up for principle, that was a game changer. And inherent contempt just means that the president's violating his constitutional oath of office.
Okay, cool. Congressman Ro Khanna is with us, the vice chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, taking your calls for the hour here on the Thom Hartmann Program. His website, Khanna, KHANNA.house.gov. You can tweet him at Rep. Ro Khanna.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
And we'll be back with more of your calls, your questions for Congressman Khanna after this short break. It's Friday. It's the last day of our fund drive, the pledge drive here for Free Speech TV. Your last chance to call in and make a contribution, or to make a continuing contribution, become a member of the sustaining, members of Free Speech TV, making donations on an ongoing basis. Special thanks, by the way, to Andrew in San Diego, Robert and Alice in San Luis Obispo, Ronald in San Francisco, and Diane in Santa Rosa, who together pulled together $15,000 for a match today. So whatever you give today will be doubled. So your $10 becomes 20, or 500 becomes 1,000, you know, whatever in between or above or below. And so it's a great way to wrap up the pledge drive. Is today the final day of the pledge drive, and also the final day of this extraordinary match with so many thanks to the fine people who helped put it together. So please call now, 877-378-8669, or go to freespeech.org and make your contribution. There's a whole selection of premiums now. With a $20 gift, you get the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker, proud student of Thom Hartmann University. You can also, with a $20 gift, get a window cling that says any functioning adult, or a window cling that says think outside the fox. Ah, I love it. You can get both of those window clings for $35. Also, with the $25 gift, we have the Impeachments. You know, nice little. I have a feeling someday these memorabilia of the impeachment of Donald Trump are actually going to have a lot of value. Just like today, if you have any of the stickers or buttons or things that go back to the Nixon impeachment efforts, or for that matter, the Clinton ones, they command quite a price in collectors' markets. So, you know, whether these will or not, I don't know. But there's the $30 Trump small hand soap, for example. Isn't that cool? And, you know, it'll keep for quite some time. So also with a $50 gift, you get a Change the Channel Free Speech TV tote bag. And keep in mind, your $50 gift becomes $100 today. I mean, you know, to Free Speech TV. You still get the tote bag, but it becomes $100. With a $100 gift, you get the Any Functional Adult long sleeve shirt, sizes small through XXL large. With $150, you get my new book, which is coming out next week. Or it starts shipping next week from, you know, online booksellers, and bookstores will be putting them on the shelves next week, next Tuesday, I think it is. And that is The Hidden History of the Supreme Court and the Betrayal of America. With a $250 gift, you can participate in a virtual meet and greet where you'll see me, I'll hear you, and a collection, you know, a group of people who make this contribution, and we'll just talk about what's going on in the world and whatever you'd like, actually. And I will try as candidly as possible to answer any questions you may have. And with a $1,000 gift, kind of same thing, only in person, right here in Portland. You know, if you want to visit the Rose City, it's a great place. Come on in, hang out in the studio for an hour. We'll go next door and have lunch. And of course, with the $360 gift, we have the Study Up package with Professor Tom. That is the bumper sticker, proud student of Thom Hartmann University, plus 3 of my books. ADHD, Hunter to Farmer's World. This literally just came out last month. It's a brand new book. In a way, we took my original book on ADD and basically completely rewrote it, because it's a new time, and we've learned a lot more since I first wrote it. And it's, you know, so much has validated my original hypothesis that ADHD is not, in most cases, is not a disease or a illness or a dysfunction. It's just a different way of having your brain work. And that in some professions, like being a talk show host, it can actually be an advantage. Also, Walking Your Blues Away, the book on how to deal with stress and trauma, and which isn't a book on so much walking as it is mental exercises. And the Thom Hartmann Reader, which is a collection of pieces from a whole bunch of different of my books. That's with $360. Excuse me. So those are the premiums. But, you know, the bottom line is Free Speech TV needs your help. We need progressive media. We need progressive media to be strong and stable and secure and to last and to persist and to grow. And all of those things can happen if enough of you call right now, 877-378-8669, and make a contribution to Free Speech TV. Whether it's, you know, $10 or $10,000, it all is really important. And frankly, a lot of $10 gifts are really, really important, because it broadens the base of support for Free Speech TV. And not to say that, you know, larger gifts aren't important also, but if all you can give is $10 or $25 or $35, please call now. Last chance. Your money will be doubled. This is and thanks again to Andrew, Robert, and Alice, Ronald, and Diane. Please call now, 877-378-8669. 877-378-8669. Thank you. Thom Hartmann Cruise will be sailing in July of 2020. The 7-day Oceania cruise will be going to Bermuda, and I'll be hosting onboard events about the topics of the day. More info at thomhartmann.com or 800-856-1155. By the way, heads up, next week I'm in Chicago, next Thursday, 6 p.m. at Smart 265 in Carroll Stream, doing a talk on and signing copies of my new book, The Hidden History of the Supreme Court and the Betrayal of America. And then the following week here in Portland, I'll be at Powell's City of Books, October 10th at 7:30 p.m., just an FYI. Congressman Ro Khanna is on the line taking your calls for the hour. He is the vice chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. Khanna.house.gov is his website. You can tweet him at Rep. Ro Khanna. And let's see here, Kelly in Berkeley, California. You are on the air with Congressman Khanna. Kelly? No Kelly. Okay, let's try Glenn in Kalama, Washington. Glenn, you're on the air.
Yes. Good morning, Congressman. My question is, what do you think is better for our country? That we pass the laws that are on the Senate's, pass the laws that the House has already sent to the Senate? Would that be better for the country? Or would it be better for the country if we just impeach the president? What I'm saying is, why don't we do an art of the deal? We'll hold the impeachment over his head. If he'll bring up these bills and pass them, we won't impeach him. Why don't we get tough with him? Why can't we play the same game?
Well, Glenn, I don't think that will work. I mean, some of the people in the president's team almost welcome impeachment as a badge of honor. But obviously, I think the House Democrats have to do both. We need to hold this president accountable. We can't compromise on our constitutional responsibility and say, okay, the president has done all these things to shred our Constitution, but we're going to give him a pass because we need to pass certain legislation. At the same time, we need to continue to push for what the House has already done, which is pass legislation to get back into the Paris Accords, on campaign finance, on equality for LGBTQ individuals. I mean, we've passed a lot of legislation that is stuck, and we need to keep pushing for it.
Bo in West Milford, New Jersey. You're on the air with Congressman Khanna.
Hello, Congressman. How are you?
Hi, Bo.
Simple question. Hi. I want to know, as a far left person who generally doesn't trust Democrats, why now are we is the Democratic Party saying whistleblower good, but back in 2013 with Obama in the White House, it was whistleblower bad with Edward Snowden?
And Kiriakou, too.
Well, but there have been a number of Democrats, progressive Democrats, who have supported whistleblowers. I do think that there's a difference, though, between whistleblowers who comply completely with the process, and I don't want to get into any particular case. But in this case, just to be clear, you have not just a whistleblower, but a whistleblower who has taken great pains to do everything by the book, who has not leaked any classified information, who has not violated the process, who has been completely law-abiding, and I think that adds to his credibility, or her credibility.
Kent, I guess the New York Times is saying it's definitely a his, but anyhow, Kent in Amstead, North Carolina, you're on the air with Congressman Khanna.
Oh, this is a privilege and an honor. My question is this: since
Trump didn't divest his business holdings from his office, and he's had so many accusations with the emoluments clause, and there doesn't seem to be any progress towards making those things stick. I'm just curious, when he has the Air Force planes landing at his resort and staying over and paying 4 times for diesel fuel, avgas, why isn't his part of his after office problem going to be the RICO Act? If he's still part of that organization and making money, and the corporation has profited from his name, why isn't that subject to corrupt practices and racketeering influence?
Ken, this president may be subject to a significant amount of exposure after his presidency. It's one of the reasons we need to win in 2020, because I think that his hope is that he wins one more term and then the statute of limitations on some of these things runs out. But you're right that there are a lot of laws that the president may have violated, and he can't be indicted according to the Office of Legal Counsel while he's president, but certainly he has exposure after he's president.
Stan in Champaign, Illinois. You're on the air with Congressman Khanna.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Congressman. I'm going to change my question if I could, and I'm going to piggyback on the question that you just answered. And the question had to do with impeachment. And I hope that what you're saying, or what I've heard you say, is that we're not just going to do a single issue impeachment. We need to have 10 or 12 articles of impeachment against this guy. We know there's at least 10, and all of them have to be on the same docket. We only have to get a two-thirds majority on one of those out of 10 in order to throw him out the door like he should be. But I think that just doing the one, if he wins and is able to hold his seat with the Republicans' help in the Senate, he's guaranteed to win in 2020.
Well, Ted, I agree with you that the Judiciary Committee needs to consider all of the misconduct, and that's what they intend to do. Now, you may have a case where they refer a number of articles to the House, and you have some House Democrats vote for one or two of those articles and not for all of them. My understanding is in the Nixon impeachment, not every member voted for every article, but we should have the comprehensive articles to the House and then have a vote up or down on each of those articles.
Columbus, Ohio. Andrew, you're on the air with Congressman Khanna.
Yeah, hi. It was reported today, Congressman, about that there's some treaty between the United States and Ukraine regarding cooperation for law enforcement and stuff like that. That was signed by President Clinton in 2000. Do you think the president will use that as like some kind of shield, saying that, asking about corruption in Ukraine be investigated, is going to use that as a shield?
Andrew, he may, but it's not going to work. I mean, it would be bad enough if the president asked his own Justice Department to go target his political rival and investigate that. The offense here is that he's asking Ukraine to selectively prosecute his political opponent. If he had just had a conversation with Ukraine and saying, you need to crack down more on corruption, you need to increase prosecution, I'm going to withhold your aid if you don't, then we could have debated the policy of that. But what is offensive is the singling out of Joe Biden. And I don't think whether we have a treaty or not, I don't think that's relevant to that.
Maine in Chicago. You're on the air with Congressman Khanna.
Yeah, how you doing? I have a question. Oh, how you doing? Yes, sir. My question is dealing with when are we going to start talking about or doing something about voodoo, Ragoon, trickle-down economics? I mean, all this we talk about doing this for the economy and doing that for the economy, until we stop this trickle-down, Now, we have given $3 trillion now to the top 0.1 so percent, and we're looking for this trickle-down thing to happen. And so, but it's not happening, and it hasn't happened since Reagan started this thing, and this needs to end. And so, to me, you have this thing. I have this thing where it's people over money or money over people. To me, Biden is money over people. Sanders is people over money. And so, I'm wondering, do y'all ever talk about ending trickle-down voodoo economics?
Well, Maine, I'm the co-chair, national co-chair of Bernie Sanders' campaign. So we talk all the time about ending trickle-down economics. Let me tell you two things that we talk about all the time. 2/3 of Americans, 70 million American families, make under $75,000 a year as a household. They haven't had a meaningful raise for the last 40 years. We need policies that are actually going to put more money in the pockets of those 70 million American families. And second, if you really wanted economic growth in this country, you would have invested in infrastructure that would have created high-paying jobs in the trades and for many Americans in different fields. There are estimates that a real infrastructure bill could get 5% economic growth. Instead, we're stuck at 2% economic growth, even though the president promised 4%, because all the money went to the investor class.
There you go. Congressman Ro Khanna taking your calls for the hour. He's the vice chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. He represents the 17th District of California, Silicon Valley, and Washington, D.C. His website, Khanna, KHANNA.house.gov. You can tweet him at Rep, as in Representative, Ro, R-O, Khanna. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Congressman Khanna taking your calls for the hour. We'll be right back with more of your calls for Representative Ro Khanna. And welcome back. Russ in Portland, Oregon. You're on the air with Congressman Khanna.
Yeah, am I up?
You are. You're on the air.
Oh, thank you. Congressman Khanna, I just wanted to get your comment on something I heard last night on Lawrence O'Donnell. He had Sheldon Whitehouse, the senator from Rhode Island, on his show, who I think is a major statesman, by the way. And Senator Whitehouse said that if the Democrats are very careful and meticulous in the way they prepare their articles of impeachment, he thinks there is a fair chance we can get enough Republicans to come across the line and actually remove this monster from office. He cautioned against rushing it. He said that setting arbitrary deadlines like Thanksgiving, not a good idea. And I just would like to hear what you had to say about this, and if you would be willing to convey Senator Whitehouse's concerns to Speaker Pelosi. Thank you.
Well, Russ, thank you. I have a lot of respect for Senator Whitehouse. I do think it's a heavy lift to get 67 Republican votes in the Senate. I mean, remember, we have never had an American president removed after being impeached. Both Johnson and Clinton were impeached. They weren't removed. Nixon resigned. He wasn't removed. And there has been no indication so far of any senator saying that they would be willing to have an impeachment inquiry. You have some senators like Sassy or Romney criticizing the president's behavior, but they've stopped well short of saying that this would justify impeachment. So I don't want to have a situation where, in the hopes of getting 67 votes, we stall and we end up kicking this out to an election year where the House Democrats become the face of the party as opposed to who our nominee is, and where we lose momentum for decisive action. I do think we have to be careful in how it's crafted. I think we have to be deliberate, but I think that can be done, and we can have a vote soon and don't have to keep pushing this out.
Barbara in Yuba City, California. You're on the air with Congressman Khanna.
Thank you. It's such an honor. Good morning, Congressman.
Good morning, Barbara. Thanks for calling.
I wanted to know if you thought it would be effective for us to, everybody in the country try to get a hold of Mitch McConnell, because, I mean, basically he's part of the reason that all of your legislation that you guys have passed, and you're doing a great job, is sitting there in kind of like the forbidden zone. Do you think it might help do you think it would help to, like, for all of us to get in contact in some way, especially over the impeachment issue, if it comes to that?
Barbara, I share your frustration. I suppose it can't hurt, but Mitch McConnell has been the most obstructionist politician in Washington, more than even the president. I mean, all of our legislation on background checks, on climate change, on jobs, on campaign finance, all of it is stuck because McConnell refuses to bring it for a vote. On gun violence, it's McConnell, more than even the White House, that refuses to bring a vote. I've been told that Mitch McConnell cares about one thing and one thing only. He views his job as packing the courts with conservative judges and justices. He hasn't really paid attention to public opinion. His polls are very low, but it can't hurt to continue to raise the issue with him.
Congressman Ro Khanna is with us for the hour, taking your calls. We'll be right back in just a moment with more of your calls for Congressman Khanna. Stick around. Every day here on the Thom Hartmann Program, Louise and I and our team, Sean, Nate, Shira, Dave, Chase, Sue, Nigel, Ron, we all work to put together the very, very best show we possibly can. And there's an enormous amount of work that goes into the show. And one of the things that comes out of that is a lot of content, a lot of specific information that we go through and we dig out and, we want to share with you. And Sue puts that into our newsletter every week. And I think you will, if you don't already receive our newsletter, it comes in email every day, about an hour after we're off the air, or maybe a couple hours after we're off the air. And Sue goes through and pulls literally every link to every story that we talked about and puts it into the newsletter. It's free. We don't sell the list or anything. You complete safety and security. There's no charge. There's no nothing. Just, plug in your email address over at thomhartmann.com. And you get signed up for the newsletter. It's all fairly obvious. You'll see it on the website. So check it out, thomhartmann.com. Thank you. Read all about it or see all about it. O'Connor taking your calls for the hour. He's the vice chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. And Danny, speaking of California, in Los Angeles. You're on the air with Congressman Khanna. Danny?
Hi.
Yeah, you're up.
Okay. Congressman, Danny Sheehan, a brilliant attorney, wrote the articles of impeachment for Richard Nixon. I think the Democrats need to hire him right now. He's a brilliant attorney. He worked on Iran-Contra and the pipeline. Anyhow, if the Dems would hire him right now, they could not pull him.
And I'm sorry, Jim is your name. I was looking at the topic as Danny Sheehan, and I'm sorry. Congressman?
Jim, that's a great suggestion. I mean, I will pass on your suggestion to the Judiciary Committee and hope that they reach out to all the experts.
Lower, Maryland. Kevin, you're on the air with Congressman Khanna.
Hi, Thom Hartmann, Congressman, and I thank you for taking my call. I'm going to say this very calm. Do you think we can get professional lawyers to question the witness? This is very serious. And when I watched yesterday, I like Schiff, but stop embellishing what's in the report and just read the report. I'm just asking. We think we got him in a corner. Can we get professional lawyers? They did it in Watergate. Can we do this now? We cannot play this. We just need to stick to the. Do you think that can happen?
Kevin, I do. I think it makes sense. I think the Judiciary Committee and the Intelligence Committee can hire competent professionals with legal backgrounds to ask questions. I mean, I think members of Congress sometimes can speechify too much. We aren't trained to conduct criminal investigations or investigations. So having professional counsel ask questions to establish a record, it strikes me as a good idea.
Sharon in Albuquerque, New Mexico. You're on the air with Congressman Khanna.
Hello, gentlemen. Congressman, thank you for your hard work. I have a comment, and that is that the Republicans are kind of playing on the Democrats, and their excuse for supporting this president is that nothing's being done, any work on immigration or gun control, infrastructure, and so on. They're saying that the Democrats are holding up all this work in Congress because of this inquiry and so forth. And before the inquiry, nothing was getting done anyway because, as one of the other callers mentioned, everything's sitting in the Senate and not being looked at for it, So I'm really frustrated with their comments and with their excuses about supporting this president and saying that we're not getting anything done. So
Joe, you're absolutely right. I mean, just a week ago, Trump was tweeting at Speaker Pelosi saying how much he appreciates the progress House Democrats have made on prescription drugs. We have passed something on universal background checks. We've passed campaign finance reform. We've passed things on climate change. We've passed things on increasing people's wages. These things are stuck because the president refuses to sign them, because the Senate refuses to act. And the Speaker is still willing to pass prescription drug legislation, still willing to pass infrastructure legislation. It's important to realize that when Nixon was impeached, when that whole process happened, at the same time you had the Endangered Species Act passed, you had the War Powers Resolution passed. So you can get things done if the White House were willing.
Tony in Fort Worth, Texas. You're on the air with Congressman Khanna.
Good morning, Tom. Congressman, thank you for all you do. I'll be brief. Congressman, I understand that you all have a recess coming up. Do you plan to take it, or do you plan to try and work through the recess?
Tony, I have a video out where I called on the leadership to cancel the recess so that we could have our committee hearings, so that we could continue to do work on gun violence legislation, so we could continue to hold this president accountable. And we posted it on social media. I worked with colleagues to try to get that to happen. They haven't canceled recess. So at this point, I'm going to go back and work in the district because there's nothing I can do being the only person in Congress. You can't get any work done. But I think it was a mistake to not cancel the recess.
Franklin, Tennessee. James, you're on the air with Congressman Khanna.
Yes, thank you, Congressman, for taking my call and listening to me here. What I got to say is that Trump is a problem, but he is not the problem. He's a symptom of the problem. This led up to the Democratic Party not supporting its base, not supporting working people, to get them out to vote. They give them no incentive. Bernie Sanders is getting people out to vote, but the Democratic Party won't stand behind him. And this is going to be a problem. You run Joe Biden, he's beat. You run Elizabeth Warren, Pocahontas is possibly beat. You run Bernie out, he's going to win.
Well, Jez, you don't have to convince me. I'm the national co-chair for Senator Sanders, and I agree that he has a commitment, a lifetime commitment, fighting for working families. And when you see him out there, he's talking about those issues. How do we strengthen unions? How do we increase wages? How do we get good-paying jobs? How do we get people health care? How do we get them education? That has to be the central message of the Democratic Party.
Well, another hour flies by, Congressman. Thanks so much for dropping by and taking everybody's calls.
Tom, I enjoyed. You've got the best listeners. They always have great questions.
I agree. And I love these national town halls, and I'm so glad you're willing to do them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Congressman Ro Khanna, his website, Khanna, KHANNA.house.gov. You can tweet him at Rep. Ro Khanna. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
It's Friday. It's the last day of our fund drive, the pledge drive here for Free Speech TV. Your last chance to call in and make a contribution, or to make a continuing contribution, become a member of the sustaining, members of Free Speech TV, making donations on an ongoing basis. Special thanks, by the way, to Andrew in San Diego, Robert and Alice in San Luis Obispo, Ronald in San Francisco, and Diane in Santa Rosa, who together pulled together $15,000 for a match today. So whatever you give today will be doubled. So your $10 becomes $20, or $500 becomes $1,000, whatever in between or above or below. And so it's a great way to wrap up the pledge drive. Is today the final day of the pledge drive, and also the final day of this extraordinary match, with so many thanks to the fine people who helped put it together. So please call now, 877-378-8669, or go to freespeech.org and make your contribution. There's a whole selection of premiums now. With a $20 gift, you get the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker, proud student of the Thom Hartmann University. You can also, with the $20 gift, get a window cling that says any functioning adult, or a window cling that says think outside the fox. I love it. You can get both of those window clings for $35. Also, with the $25 gift, we have the Impeachments. Nice little. I have a feeling someday these memorabilia of the impeachment of Donald Trump are actually going to have a lot of value. Just like today, if you have any of the stickers or buttons or things that go back to the Nixon impeachment efforts, or for that matter, the Clinton ones, they command quite a price in collectors' markets. So, whether these will or not, I don't know. But there's the $30 Trump small hand soap, for example. Isn't that cool? And it'll keep for quite some time. So also with a $50 gift, you get a Change the Channel Free Speech TV tote bag. And keep in mind, your $50 gift becomes $100 today. I mean, to Free Speech TV. You still get the tote bag, but it becomes $100. With a $100 gift, you get the Any Functional Adult long sleeve shirt, sizes small through XX large. With $150, you get my new book, which is coming out next week. Or it starts shipping next week from online booksellers, and bookstores will be putting them on the shelves next week, next Tuesday, I think it is. And that is The Hidden History of the Supreme Court and the Betrayal of America. With a $250 gift, you can participate in a virtual meet and greet where you'll see me, I'll hear you, and a collection, a group of people who make this contribution, and we'll just talk about what's going on in the world and whatever you'd like, actually. And I will try as candidly as possible to answer any questions you may have. And with a $1,000 gift, kind of same thing, only in person, right here in Portland. If you want to visit the Rose City, it's a great place. Come on in, hang out in the studio for an hour. We'll go next door and have lunch. And of course, with the $360 gift, we have the Study Up package with Professor Tom. That is the bumper sticker, proud student of Thom Hartmann University, plus 3 of my books. ADHD, Hunter to Farmer's World. This literally just came out last month. It's a brand new book. In a way, we took my original book on ADD and basically completely rewrote it, because it's a new time, and we've learned a lot more since I first wrote it. And it's, so much has validated my original hypothesis that ADHD is not, in most cases, is not a disease or a illness or a dysfunction. It's just a different way of having your brain work. And that in some professions, like being a talk show host, it can actually be an advantage. Also, Walking Your Blues Away, the book on how to deal with stress and trauma, and which isn't a book on so much walking as it is mental exercises. And the Thom Hartmann Reader, which is a collection of pieces from a whole bunch of different of my books. That's with $360. Excuse me. So those are the premiums. But, the bottom line is, Free Speech TV needs your help. We need progressive media. We need progressive media to be strong and stable and secure and to last and to persist and to grow. And all of those things can happen if enough of you call right now, 877-378-8669, and make a contribution to Free Speech TV. Whether it's, $10 or $10,000, it all is really important. And frankly, a lot of $10 gifts are really, really important because it broadens the base of support for Free Speech TV. And not to say that, larger gifts aren't important also, but if all you can give is $10 or $25 or $35, please call now. Last chance. Your money will be doubled. This is and thanks again to Andrew, Robert, and Alice, Ronald, and Diane. Please call now, 877-378-8669. 877-378-8669. Thank you. So every 5 years, the U.S. Department of Agriculture comes out with new guidelines, and we just put up a video over at thomhartmann.com for supporters of our program that talks about how the Trump administration, in this insanely corrupt deal with the $100 billion industry of ultra-processed, high-sugar, high-salt, high-fat foods that is literally killing 700,000 Americans a year, has said, oh, we're going to change the guidelines so that these fast food, high-processed food companies can shovel their stuff into our school lunch programs, into our kids. We're going to change the guidelines so people aren't informed about the importance of, dialing back somewhat on meat and on salt and sugar and all these other things. It's nuts. You can check the whole thing out over at thomhartmann.com. Look for the video for our, the supporters of our program at thomhartmann.com. Appear highly unrealistic. The Last Hours of Ancient Sunlight by Thom Hartmann.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. It's Anything Goes Friday. I'll be picking up your calls in just a few minutes. A number of people have contacted me to ask who are the Democratic Party holdouts who have not yet endorsed an impeachment inquiry. Now, we're not even talking about will you impeach? Would you vote to impeach? This is simply, will you vote to investigate the president and determine whether he has committed a crime, a high crime or misdemeanor that may be worthy of impeachment? And so if one of these people represents you in the U.S. House of Representatives, these are all members of Congress, members of the House, you may want to call them. The telephone number is 202-225-3121 or 224-3121, either one. The first is Colin Peterson. Colin Peterson represents, he's from Michigan. Then you have, let's see, Lucy McBath of Georgia, Anthony Brindisi and Max Rose of New York State, Joe Cunningham of South Carolina, Tulsi Gabbard of Hawaii, who is also running for president and just made the next debate, Jared Golden of Maine, Kendra Horn of Oklahoma, Ron Kind of Wisconsin, Beth McAdams of Utah. I'm not sure how to pronounce this as Xochitl, Wakatil, Torres Small of New Mexico, and Jeff Van Drew of New Jersey. And these are, quote, moderate Democrats. And for whatever reason, well, I'm not sure that Tulsi Gabbard would call herself a moderate, but whatever, for whatever reason, each one of these people none of these people so far, and this was as of last night, probably 11 o'clock last night, that I first saw this list. So just an FYI on that. A new report was issued yesterday by the country's leading election and security experts. This was a result of the hacker convention, the cybersecurity convention that they have every year, and they assembled more than 100 different voting machines from all the different voting machine manufacturers and brought them all there, and every single one of them was easily and quickly hacked, and election totals were changed. So this should be telling us something. This, as you recall, Israel had an election, a week or so ago, and it took three days to learn what the result was. Why? Because everybody who voted on paper. And the same thing happens in Europe. The same, they call the elections based on the exit polls, or they call them, as they did in Israel, too close to call because, it's an election poll and it may be within 0.5% off, and it literally was just going right down razor thin. But here we are. A few other things in the news that I think are really worth noting. NPR is reporting that the National Rifle Association, the NRA, was a foreign asset. This is a new report from Senator Ron Wyden, and we're going to be talking with him on Monday on this program. And in this new report, this is an 18-month probe by the Senate Finances Committee's staff. They found that the NRA, I'm quoting from the NPR article, that the NRA underwrote political access for Russian nationals Maria Butina and Alexander Torshin more than previously known, even though the two had declared their ties to the Kremlin. So the NRA was explicitly being basically a front organization for Moscow. The NRA also threw, as I recall, $40 million into Trump's campaign, or into support for Trump in that campaign. And so, is this going to be another thing that takes down the NRA? We'll see. Anyhow, it's Anything Goes Friday. Let's pick up your calls here. Jeff in Portland, Oregon. Hey, Jeff, what's on your mind?
Hey, happy Friday, Tom. Thanks for taking my call.
Thanks, back at you.
Thank you. A couple nights ago, Lawrence O'Donnell said that you don't want to be too narrow or limited in how many articles of impeachment you send over to the Senate. It's best to give the Republicans in the Senate the ability to vote no on some of them while still voting yes for at least one or more. Pursuant to that, Tom, including emoluments violations would not only be more than justified, but it may also be strategic. Furthermore, who knows how many more impeachable offenses are contained on that secret server? Those could be the 2019 version of the Watergate tapes.
Yep.
So what do you think, Tom? How comprehensive and thorough would you be in drawing up the articles of impeachment?
Well, Lawrence used to work in the Senate, and I never did, and so I'm not an authority on Senate rules. I was assuming that each senator would have to vote up or down on a collection of articles of impeachment, yes or no, basically on the whole thing as one essentially bill, like a piece of legislation. It's certainly how it is done with legislation. A senator can't say, on this tax bill, I like the part that gives me a tax break, but I don't like the part that gives, Warren Buffett a tax break, and so I'm going to split my vote. You can't do that. I was assuming that that's how it worked with impeachment, but it sounds like what you're saying is that Lawrence is saying that each separate article of impeachment is broken out and they can vote yes or no on each one. Did he clearly say that, Jeff?
That's what it sounded. That's how I understood it, and that really did seem to be the gist of what he was saying.
Because this would require two different strategies. I mean, if it's take it or leave it, all or nothing, then you want it to be super narrow focused and super unambiguous and super obvious, right? This guy had this conversation with Zelensky. He was trying to shake down a foreign leader. That's a violation of the Constitution. That's literally a high crime. In other words, the abuse of high office, and therefore he should be impeached. On the other hand, if they can pick and choose, and I don't know the answer to the question, Jeff, and over the weekend I'll try to find out, but if they can pick and choose, then that would argue in favor of the throw everything against the wall mode so that each senator can find what they like. But then the question is, if one Republican senator votes on Article 3 of 10 and another Republican votes on Article 7 of 10, do those both count as remove him from office votes? Or do they all have to, does he have to have 60, do they have to get 67 votes all on Article 3, for example? So I've got some Senate rules figuring out to do, and I'm going to be speaking with Senator Wyden this afternoon. We're going to record an interview that'll play on Monday to talk about the NRA, and I'll see if he has any thoughts on that. So let me see what I can find out, okay?
All right, Tom. Sounds great. Have an excellent weekend.
Thanks. You too, Jeff. Good talking to you. Walter in Wheaton, Illinois. Hey, Walter, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom. Thanks for taking my call. I've got a question about the statute of limitations.
Mm-hmm.
I've been looking on the internet, and there's something called tolling of the statute of limitations. Have you heard of that?
No.
Okay. Well, tolling means that if somebody is not available for prosecution, say like in a state situation, the person isn't committed a crime in one state and he goes to another state and the state can't get him back to prosecute him, or he's in hiding or something so they can't find him to prosecute him, they can go ahead and toll the statute of limitations. So they freeze the statute of limitations at the time that they can't get hold of this person. And once that person becomes available, the statute of limitations again start up. So now with Trump being in office and he can't be prosecuted because of his office,
right?
Can they toll the statute of limitations on his crimes, and once he gets out of office, renew the statute of limitations?
This is the first time I've ever heard of this, Walter. My guess is that this would be something that would be unique to the state laws on statutes of limitation and perhaps only unique to a few states. With regard to the federal statute of limitations, I know that, I've heard from at least one constitutional law professor that they were concerned that the statute of limitations on campaign finance violations is 5 years. The campaign finance violation that Donald Trump committed, that Michael Cohen is rotting in jail for right now, paying off Stormy Daniels and Karen McDougal. That campaign finance violation, the statute of limitations runs out in the middle of what would be either the first year of his second term or the first year, after he gets out of office if he loses. And they were concerned that if he got reelected, he would, the statute of limitations would allow him to skate. So I'm guessing that this tolling process that you're describing does not apply to federal statutes of limitations. And like I said, therefore, if it does exist as you've described it, and I can't say yes or no, that it probably is just some states that do it. I know some other states definitely don't do it. Because there have been some fairly high-profile cases where states wanted to prosecute people for fairly heinous crimes and weren't able to because of the statute of limitations, and their state legislatures went bad. You see a lot of this, particularly after the Catholic sex abuse scandals. The state legislatures came back and they changed the length of time for the statute. So I'm guessing that that's the case. Walter, I'm sorry I don't have a definitive answer for you, but that's the best I can do. Melody in Atlanta. Hey, Melody, what's up?
Hi, Tom. Good afternoon. I'm actually calling. I have a question for you. And again, this might be something that you have to look into, or you might have a better answer than me because I've tried Google and all kinds of other different avenues, asking some friends. If 45 is impeached and resigns or is removed or subsequently leaves office because he's not reelected, all of the consequences in places like where I live in Georgia, where one of the worst abortion bans has been enacted, forced birth, all kinds of EPA regulations rolled back, all these terrible things that have been put in place, along with all the judges that have been put in place going forth well after all these guys are gone, these officials are gone. Is there any way for their legal liability and showing that they're not good in protecting our government and stable as far as our national security? Is there any way to use that legally?
Are you talking about Trump's judicial appointments?
Yes, his judicial appointments and all of the things that he's rolled back himself through executive order.
Oh yeah, his executive orders can be reversed in short order by somebody else who comes in. That's how he was able to reverse so many of Obama's executive orders. The executive can reverse an executive order. Judges have lifetime appointments, and there's no way to stop that or block that or reverse that short of impeachment. You can't impeach individual judges. It has been done a few times with district judges over the years. It was attempted once with Justice Chase back in the day, back in the late 1700s or maybe early 1800s. It was not successful. It's never been used successfully against a Supreme Court justice. So with regard to the judges, I think by and large we're stuck. As far as the executive orders and that kind of damage, that's easily repaired, relatively easily. Some of it is going to be, there's going to be some lasting damage. And with regard to his appointees, those all get swept out and they get replaced. Melody, great question. Thank you for the call.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
It's Anything Goes Friday, back with more of your calls right after this, 18 minutes past the hour here on the Thom Hartmann Program, fair and only slightly unbalanced. And welcome back. Peter in Seattle. Hey, Peter, what's up? Peter?
Yes. Hi, Tom. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
So my question is, why, with all of the investigation and talk about Trump, why isn't there more coming out about him as a Russian asset? The fact that he's basically his extensive business dealings with the Russian oligarchs, that he's owned by them. And, you know, in all of the election interference and now with the Ukraine situation, there's still not, I think it's just a real central point.
The evidence that we would have of that would be found with his tax returns and financial records and the testimony of people within the Trump organization who have, in some cases, been subpoenaed. Some of them testified before the Mueller grand jury. And even Congress does not yet have access to that testimony. Bill Barr has been blocking it very aggressively and very successfully. So, to the extent that, we all saw him in Helsinki, have a 2-hour meeting with Putin and then tear up the notes and then come out and defend Putin and trash our own intelligence services, which is probably a pretty horrible day for anybody working in any of the intelligence services in this country. But the smoking gun has not yet been uncovered the way it was with Zelensky over the weekend, or Zelensky. And so, I think that's the reason, Peter. We'll see. I think it'll come out. Thanks for the call. Eric in Erie, Pennsylvania. Hey, Eric, what's up?
Hey, Tom. Happy Friday. Thanks for taking my call. Sure. I'm picking up where Walter left off a few minutes ago. That was what occurred to me on the statute of limitations. And given that the directive there to, prohibition on prosecuting a president, that's limited to only an opinion memo out of the Justice Department. I was going to suggest that an addendum to that memo should be filed as soon as possible. I know Trump's own Justice Department won't do it, but to halt and freeze the statute of limitations while a president is in office. And, it would be in the interest of the country, really, to not see a sitting president go through a prosecution. It could make us vulnerable to all kinds of stuff. So I think it's a good idea to not,
I went back and read the 2000 OLC memo. I haven't yet read the one from the original Nixon era, but I read the one from the Clinton era, which probably half the memo is excerpts from the original one, from the Nixon one.
Right.
And they build a pretty strong case that it's not appropriate to charge a sitting president with a crime, but you can do it as soon as he gets out of office. And that would, as you correctly point out, argue strongly for suspending the statute of limitations. Problem is, neither the Department of Justice nor Congress have the ability to do that ad hoc, just to this. They would have to pass a law. Congress would have to pass a law, and the president would have to sign it, or the law would have to sustain a veto or a pocket veto in order to become law. And I don't see that happening.
And it's a catch-22 with this president.
Of course. Just, and now he's arguing that as president, he cannot even be investigated for crimes. This is the latest thing coming out of Bill Barr and the Justice Department. It's nuts. Eric, thank you for the call. Well said. We'll be right back. So every 5 years, the U.S. Department of Agriculture comes out with new guidelines, and we just put up a video over at ThomHartmann.com for supporters of our program that talks about how the Trump administration, in this insanely corrupt deal with the $100 billion industry of ultra-processed, high-sugar, high-salt, high-fat foods that is literally killing 700,000 Americans a year, has said, oh, we're going to change the guidelines so that these fast food, high processed food companies can shovel their stuff into our school lunch programs, into our kids. We're going to change the guidelines so people aren't informed about the importance of, dialing back somewhat on meat and on salt and sugar and all these other things. It's nuts. You can check the whole thing out over at thomhartmann.com. Look for the video for our, the supporters of our program at thomhartmann.com. Just a quick reminder that next week I am going to be in Chicago, and next Thursday night at 6 p.m. At Smart 265. It's a Union Hall in Carroll Stream, Illinois, on Alexander Way. And there's more information at at WCPT 820, WCPT820.com. And then also the following week, the week after next, October 10th at 7:30, I'll be at Powell City of Books on Burnside here in Portland. So a lot of interesting stuff coming up. And those are both around my new book, The Hidden History of the Supreme Court and the Betrayal of America. So Tim in Burlington, Vermont. Hey, Tim, what's on your mind today?
Tom, how you doing? Appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you. What's up?
Hey, listen, I've got a question on the appointments. If they're in there for their life.
You're talking about the judicial appointments, judges.
Yes, and I'm waiting on your book too. I'm kind of a little nervous because of all the money that's in the politics and those judges being there. Do we even have a fighting chance? Because this has been worked on economically through Buchanan, the Koch brothers. It's been going on for so long.
Yeah, it's been a 40-year project to pack the courts with right-wing judges, and Mitch McConnell is carrying that 40-year project to its conclusion.
Exactly. So what can we do?
What we can do is show up and vote. Basically, Tim. I mean, this is Reagan famously said elections have consequences, and he was right. And the consequence of the last couple of elections, and frankly, the inability or lack of the failure of the Democratic Party to have coherent messages and we saw this again in the hearing where they were interrogating the Director of National Intelligence, Joe McClure, what's his name? McGuire. Thank you, Sean. Is that where they should have been saying, let's talk about the secret server, let's talk about what Trump said, let's talk about the offer, let's talk about the criminality. Instead, they were trying to nail the guy on, why didn't you get this to us in 7 days? Why did it take 21 days? That was cleaned up in the first 5 minutes. I mean, they really need to be focusing on message, the Democrats. But they haven't always. And so, we've got some Republicans running the Senate. You got a Republican in the White House. And I just pray the Democrats get their act together. And Tim, you and me and everybody we know have to get out and vote. The only way to stop this is to have the Democrats control the Senate and the White House. Tim, thanks a lot for the call. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
I think even the Merrick Garland nomination, Obama could have been yelling from to high heaven about that and failed to. It's Friday. It's the last day of our fund drive, the pledge drive here for Free Speech TV. Your last chance to call in and make a contribution or to make a continuing contribution, become a member of the sustaining, members of Free Speech TV, making donations on an ongoing basis. Special thanks, by the way, to Andrew in San Diego, Robert and Alice in San Luis Obispo, Ronald in San Francisco, and Diane in Santa Rosa, who together pulled together $15,000 for a match today. So whatever you give today will be doubled. So your $10 becomes 20, or 500 becomes 1,000, you know, whatever in between or above or below. And so it's a great way to wrap up the pledge drive. Is today the final day of the pledge drive, and also the final day of this extraordinary match, with so many thanks to the fine people who helped put it together. So please call now, 877-378-8669, or go to freespeech.org and make your contribution. There's a whole selection of premiums now. With a $20 gift, you get the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker, proud student of Thom Hartmann University. You can also, with the $20 gift, get a window cling that says any functioning adult, or a window cling that says think outside the fox. I love it. You can get both of those window clings for $35. Also, with the $25 gift, we have the Impeachments. Nice little. I have a feeling someday these memorabilia of the impeachment of Donald Trump are actually going to have a lot of value. Just like today, if you have any of the stickers or buttons or things that go back to the Nixon impeachment efforts, or for that matter, the Clinton ones, they command quite a price in collectors' markets. So, whether these will or not, I don't know. But there's the $30 Trump small hand soap, for example. Isn't that cool? And it'll keep for quite some time. So also with a $50 gift, you get a Change the Channel Free Speech TV tote bag. And keep in mind, your $50 gift becomes $100 today. I mean, that's to Free Speech TV. You still get the tote bag, but it becomes $100. With a $100 gift, you get the Any Functional Adult long sleeve shirt, sizes small through XX large. With $150, you get my new book, which is coming out next week. Or it starts shipping next week from online booksellers, and bookstores will be putting them on the shelves next week, next Tuesday, I think it is. And that is The Hidden History of the Supreme Court and the Betrayal of America. With a $250 gift, you can participate in a virtual meet and greet where you'll see me, I'll hear you, and a collection, a group of people who make this contribution, and we'll just talk about what's going on in the world and whatever you'd like, actually. And I will try as candidly as possible to answer any questions you may have. And with a $1,000 gift, kind of same thing, only in person, right here in Portland. If you want to visit the Rose City, it's a great place. Come on in, hang out in the studio for an hour. We'll go next door and have lunch. And of course, with the $360 gift, we have the Study Up package with Professor Tom. That is the bumper sticker, proud student of Thom Hartmann University, plus 3 of my books. ADHD, Hunter to Farmer's World. This literally just came out last month. It's a brand new book. In a way, we took my original book on ADD and basically completely rewrote it, because it's a new time, and we've learned a lot more since I first wrote it. And it's, so much has validated my original hypothesis that ADHD is not, in most cases, is not a disease or a illness or a dysfunction. It's just a different way of having your brain work. And that in some professions, like being a talk show host, it can actually be an advantage. Also, Walking Your Blues Away, the book on how to deal with stress and trauma, and which isn't a book on so much walking as it is mental exercises. And the Thom Hartmann Reader, which is a collection of pieces from a whole bunch of different of my books. That's with $360. Excuse me. So those are the premiums. But, the bottom line is Free Speech TV needs your help. We need progressive media. We need progressive media to be strong and stable and secure and to last and to persist and to grow. And all of those things can happen if enough of you call right now, 877-378-8669, and make a contribution to Free Speech TV. Whether it's $10 or $10,000, it all is really important. And frankly, a lot of $10 gifts are really, really important because it broadens the base of support for free speech TV. And not to say that larger gifts aren't important also, but if all you can give is $10 or $25 or $35, please call now. Last chance. Your money will be doubled. This is and thanks again to Andrew, Robert, and Alice, Ronald, and Diane. Please call now, 877-378-8669. 877-378-8669. Thank you. Welcome back. Boy, every 5 years, the stuff that's going on in the news is just incredible. Adam Schiff, the chair of the House Intelligence Committee, who was interrogating the director of national intelligence, was it yesterday? Wow, time flies. It seems like it was last week now. Anyhow, he is going to, all of Congress is going on recess, or went on recess today. I guess yesterday was their last working day. And they won't be back until the middle of October. But he says the House Intelligence Committee is going to stay. They're going to stay in D.C. and they're going to work on this impeachment stuff. And that's great. And Donald Trump is clearly pretty freaked out about this. He's just blithering. I mean, he's tweeting, he's talking, he's ranted at anybody he can, and making inappropriate comments and threats against witnesses yesterday in front of his staff at the United Nations, which is, by the way, a federal felony as well. An interesting piece by Coase over on thedailycoase.com about who was in the room with Donald Trump when the decision was made to release the transcript of his conversation with Ukrainian President Zelensky. And Pompeo and Mnuchin were there, and they said, don't let this thing out, it's explosive. But, and this is hysterical, I mean, the hardcore maggots, right? Jim Jordan, Devin Nunes, John Ratcliffe, Matt Gaetz, and Mark Meadows were all there. These are the guys who are so deeply burrowed into Donald Trump world and into Fox world that they literally live inside this bubble and whether they believe it or not, I don't know, but they sure behave like they do. They were all saying, yeah, let it out. It's okay. It's all good. There's no quid pro quo there. You'll do just fine. And Devin Nunes is like, I don't know if you saw him questioning Joseph McGuire, the director of national intelligence, but it was embarrassing. I mean, it was amazing. So anyhow, as I said, anything goes Friday. Picking up your phone calls. Jonathan in Portland. Hey, Jonathan, what's on your mind?
Hi. I wanted to talk about the Republicans on the Intelligence Committee. Before I do that, do me a favor when you see Ron Wyden and ask him about interstate cross-check, because he blew me off when I saw him.
Okay. Sure.
Anyway, I recommend everyone go on C-SPAN, watch the entire hearing, because it's incredible, and you'll never get the real story until you really watch it. But look at some of the people, the Republicans on the committee. There's Mike Conway, okay? He's actually not running for re-election, but he was in bed with George Bush with Arbusto Energy in the 80s, and one of their original financiers was James Bath, who was an investor for the Saudis and Salam bin Laden. And then you have Mike Turner, and Turner...
Are these Republicans or Democrats?
Republicans. These are Republicans, okay? These are the guys on the committee that were asking the questions yesterday. And by the way, all of them, it was kind of comical because all of them were essentially threatening the DNI, saying, watch what you say because the news is going to pick this stuff up. You know, so they were sort of strong-arming him.
Well, they were alternating between threatening him that way and then trying to portray him as the victim. These Democrats keep impugning your character and your integrity. I'm so sorry, that you have to tolerate this when, by and large, the Democrats were not doing that. But anyhow.
Well, yeah, they're professional victims,
Yeah, the Republicans are, yes.
But Mike Turner, he was voted, he was listed as one of the most corrupt members of Congress for enrichment of himself, family, and friends, and solicitation of gifts. So he's just like Trump.
Right.
Then you got Chris Stewart, and Chris Stewart actually called Trump Benito Mussolini in 2016, and he said to a group at the Hinckley Institute, he said that that if you're a Trump supporter, you see the world differently because I can't imagine what you're thinking. And then you got Brad Wenstrup, and Wenstrup did everything he possibly could to quash the Russia investigation. And you know as well as I do, they had 5 committees for 2 years going after Clinton with Benghazi and found absolutely nothing.
Right.
But these guys are filthy dirty.
Yeah. And I think broadly, you'll find that across the Republican caucus, the Republicans in the House of Representatives, because they have nothing to offer 99% of Americans. They live to serve their their billionaire masters and the corporations that own them.
I just want to say quickly, Snowden got nailed because he was a contractor. He wasn't working for the government, and that's why the whistleblower statutes don't apply to him. So,
I believe there is a whistleblower provision that would extend to contractors.
I heard on the radio yesterday that's why he's living in Moscow, because he's not considered protected.
I thought he just didn't think that the whistleblower process would treat him fairly after what happened with John Kiriakou.
He's being charged with the Espionage Act of 1917, and that doesn't allow for a defense. You just say whether you're guilty or innocent.
Well, but that's the thing. If you go through the whistleblower channels, you're putting in a preemptive defense. I mean, that you're no longer revealing secrets. You are engaged in a completely different process.
But I think that's why they outsource all this stuff. Because
I think the bigger issue here, Jonathan, is that Snowden, whether he had a process available to him or not, and I would argue that there had to be something, that he did not believe that process would treat him fairly. And there's a huge body of evidence to suggest that in fact is the case. And Donald Trump just added to that by saying that this whistleblower should be shot or tortured or electrocuted or hanged or however they do it with traitors. They are spies.
The DNI admitted to a Democrat on the committee. He said that his behavior, the DNI's behavior, created a chilling effect among the intelligence community because he didn't defend the intelligence community in the face of Trump's threats.
Yeah. The whole thing is. I mean, we need to strengthen our whistleblower laws and get back to some rational ways of running government here. Jim in Chicago. Hey, Jim, what's on your mind?
Thomas, in regards to going way back to April, you had talked about the income tax and how it was too complex, too hard to work out, took too many people too much money to compute that.
Okay.
And also because the Democrats have not, as far as I know, issued any response to the Trump tax plan from back almost 2 years now.
Right.
I'm just going to propose something real simple. Federal personal income tax reform plan. It's simple, it's fair, it's progressive, it's historical, it's biblical. It will appeal to a lot of typically non-democratic voters. And if you were interested, I'll tell you real quick what it is.
If you could do it in a couple of sentences, sure.
Okay. You take all of your income. Put that down on a sheet of paper. You move the decimal place over six places, and that's the multiplier that you use to calculate your tax. So if you made $10,000, you pay $100 in tax.
So you're talking about a flat tax. Flat taxes are not progressive.
No. If you go to 100,000, you're paying 10%. You move the decimal place over 6 points.
Oh, I see.
So as you make more money, you keep paying a higher tax rate.
So every time you exceed it's not an order of magnitude, but every time you add another zero. That's interesting, Jim. That's interesting. Thanks a lot. Marion in South Beach, Oregon. Hey, Marion, what's up?
Hi, Tom. Thanks for taking my call. I actually called in the first time last Friday and had a crazy idea, and you pointed to Reagan, rightly so, and then kind of blew me off with, that's never going to happen, rightly so. It probably won't ever happen. Because I suggested paying CEOs on a different system. Today, I just have a simple question. How does one maintain an infinite economic growth in a finite system without destroying humanity?
One doesn't.
Because science tells us it can't happen. So how do we do this? Because this is the system that we have right now.
Yeah. I think it's we have to reconsider our economy, and this is the point that Greta Thunberg made last week, where she said that this fantasy of unlimited economic growth, we have to figure out how to live and operate within the constraints of our biosphere, and within the constraints and limits of a rational economic system, and we have not figured that out yet, and we really have to quickly. Marion, thank you for the call. James in Chicago. Hey, James, what's up?
Hi, Tom. It's regarding messaging. Last week, Joe Scarborough said this. Warren and Sanders want to take away health care from 156 million workers. Now, he didn't say insurance, he said health care. So
yeah, Joe Scarborough's a Republican. I know. You got to get that.
I know, but what I'm saying is that I hope that at the next debate that one of the two of them will say, I'm not going to take away your health care. I'm going to relieve you of your insurance burden. Under the current system, your doctor has to be in a network for you to get that insurance. Under my system, all doctors are on one network. Thereby, you can go to any doctor you want.
Yeah, I love your phrase. I'm going to relieve you of your insurance burden. That is brilliant messaging, James. I would love to see the Democrats adopt that. Thank you for that. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
I believe in about 4 minutes we're going to check in with Talk Media News. We'll find out. Stick around. And welcome back. Carrie in New Windsor, New York. Hey, Carrie, what's up? Carrie? I'm not hearing Carrie. Let's try Steve in Phoenix, Arizona. Steve, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom.
Hey, you're on the air.
Hey, Tom, I want to make this as perfect a call as humanly possible, and with as little gorilla dust as can be. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay. How many of these swamp rats can get caught up and ensnared in this investigation? We've got a whole slew of them. You named a whole bunch of them. And is there a possibility of jail time for some of these ones? And we know who they are. The Giuliani, Pence, Mnuchin, Getz.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think it's quite likely. You recall that Richard Nixon had either 53 or 35. I might have a little mental math dyslexia there, but one or the other of members of his administration were charged with crimes and prosecuted for crimes. And as I recall, 13 or 15 of them, I'd have to go back and look at the numbers, but fewer than 20 of them, but more than one actually went to prison. And John Mitchell, his attorney general, went to prison for 19 months. So yes, I think that can be done, and frankly, I think it should be done. So Steve, thank you. Richard in Kennewick, Washington. Hey, Richard, what's up?
Hey, Tom, your previous caller actually just covered my topic, so I'll just say I love your show. Keep up the good work.
Okay, thanks a lot, Richard. Good to hear from you. Robert in Greenville, North Carolina. Robert, what's on your mind today?
Oh, hey, Tom. Oh, Tulsi Gabbard voted today for impeachment.
Oh, she did? Okay, so she changed. Yeah. Oh, good. So we can take her off the list.
And the Democrats are still treating Bernie poorly.
Mm-hmm.
And they just need to go, Bernie Sanders, go on YouTube and look C-SPAN and go back over everything. Bernie Sanders has been right on forever.
Yeah, well, for 11
really
years
shameful.
he was on this show every single Friday taking calls for a whole hour, and he was pretty solid back then too.
And Donald Trump, who says he's locked and loaded, he's not locked and loaded. He's half-cocked, and bloated.
Yeah, half-cocked and bloated. It's actually that's a pretty good one, Robert. I can't disagree with that. Thank you very much for the call. I appreciate it. Kim in Portland. Hey, Kim, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. I want to tell your Cascadia area listeners about the new union that started. It's All for One and One for All Cascadia.org, and it's a union for average citizens, and its mission is to strengthen the community.
Okay.
And I also wanted to mention a new Portland area meetup for localizing the Portland economy. And it's called Local Eyes, local EYES, plus Local Eyes, AYES equals localize. And we want to invite everyone from all corners and colors of the Portland community to come together and re-envision our economy.
Cool. Are you with any particular group in Kim in Portland, or are you just noticing all this stuff going on?
Well, Tom, you may remember me from the Brainchild Adoption Center of recent years, and later this fall I'm launching what I'm calling Economic Tinker Toys, which includes the Brainchild Adoption Center and some other features.
Wow, some great stuff. Kim, thank you, and thanks for the heads up, and I appreciate the call. We'll be right back. We're going to check in with Doug Christian with Talk Media News in just a minute and find out what's going on in the world. Stick around. We'll be right back. So every 5 years, the U.S. Department of Agriculture comes up with guidelines, and we just put up a video over at ThomHartmann.com for supporters of our program that talks about how the Trump administration, in this insanely corrupt deal with the $100 billion industry of ultra-processed, high-sugar, high-salt, high-fat foods that is literally killing 700,000 Americans a year, has said, oh, we're going to change the guidelines so that these fast food, high-processed food companies can shovel their stuff into our school lunch programs, into our kids. We're going to change the guidelines so people aren't informed about the importance of, dialing back somewhat on meat and on salt and sugar and all these other things. It's nuts. You can check the whole thing out over at ThomHartmann.com. Look for the video for our, the supporters of our program at ThomHartmann.com. So let's check in with Talk Media News and find out what's up in the world today. On the line with us is Doug Christian. Hey, Doug, what's happening? What's the latest news?
Well, there's a lot about impeachment going on these days. And here in the White House, of course, the president is in a state of shock. Usually when he gets off his helicopter, he walks over to the press, he spars, he name calls, he does all sorts of things. This time he made a huge circle right around the press and actually kind of hid from them as he walked directly to his onlookers over on the other side, and we in the press had to scurry on over to the other side.
He didn't go into the bushes where Sean Spicer used to hide out?
Exactly. It was like that. Yeah. And then he literally would not get close to the press and then kind of waved at us as he walked into the executive mansion. And then he walked through the executive mansion and then down the corridor next to the Rose Garden, the outdoor corridor. And we in the press were actually blocked from getting close to him. And he just walked right into the Oval Office to avoid speaking to us. So, clearly, he is, and of course, people here in the White House, many officials they're totally shocked. They had no idea that Nancy Pelosi would follow through and do this.
Yeah. They thought that their bet was that the Democrats were total wimps.
That's exactly right. That's exactly
Bad
right.
bet.
And of course, and here, Nancy Pelosi. I mean, I had spoken with several Republican senators who went back to the old talking points. Of course, the White House sent those talking points inadvertently to Democrats misspelled Zelensky's name, but those talking points mention all sorts of, the usual nonsense about impeachment, including that Democrats just hate Trump. The thing I said to Jim Inhofe is, I said, but Nancy Pelosi did not want to go forward with impeachment for the longest time. It was only when this happened that enough was enough. Now, the thing is that today, 300 intelligence officers have written a statement, a letter expressing their profound concern of Trump's actions. And they say most of them have eschewed politics throughout their careers, and as a result, we haven't weighed in publicly. But they said the revelations in recent days, however, demand a response. Specifically, all of us recognize the imperative of formal impeachment proceedings to ascertain additional facts and weigh in the consequences of what we've learned and what may yet still emerge. And, of course, what they already know is that this is not just one call, but many calls that have actually been shifted over to what they call code word level secure server, and that's an additional level of security way beyond top secret. This is for such a security concern as, let's say, the action against Osama bin Laden. And, of course, this is in direct violation of a 2009 executive order by President Obama saying that documents cannot be moved to secret locations to skirt scrutiny. So now, of course, this impeachment comes as the Hill-Harris X poll shows that support for impeachment inquiry has jumped up 12 points to 47% versus 3 points down, opposed to impeachment, down to 42%. So actually more people are for impeachment right now than against it.
I'm thinking, Doug, that secret server that Trump's people are using to hide his, quote, politically sensitive, end quote, conversations with foreign leaders like Mr. Putin and presumably Mr. Erdogan and Duterte and Modi and whatnot, that secret server is going to be to Trump what the White House tapes were to Nixon. That's going to be the documentary evidence that brings him down. Is that an opinion that is widespread in Washington, D.C.?
Yes and no. The thing is that I talked to John Tester, who is a very important measure because he is a senator in a red state in Montana.
Democratic senator from Montana, yeah.
Exactly. And I asked him about impeachment inquiry, and he said they must stay focused. And then you heard Nancy Pelosi say we must stay focused. There may be many other violations, but if the Democrats get distracted and say, yes, there was this, and there was this, and there was this, then what Tester was arguing to me is that this impeachment inquiry could get lost in confusion. So that's, even though there's a lot of stuff going on.
It needs to be simple and straightforward. Doug, do you know, the way that laws are voted on by senators is they can't pick and choose parts of the law that they like. They can't say, I'll take this tax cut, but I don't want that tax cut. They just have to vote yes or no on the entire piece of legislation. Does it work that way with impeachment? If there's 8 articles of impeachment, do they have to vote yes or no on all 8, or do they get to vote yes on 1, no on 2, yes on 3? Do you know?
I don't know. I don't know the
those
answer to that.
two different systems, I guess, or structures would require two quite different strategies, and that might be what Tester was talking about. But it's fascinating stuff. Doug Christian with Talk Media News. Thank you, Doug.
You bet.
Great talking with you. And thank you for being with us today. This week, in fact, it's Friday. I hope you have a wonderful and blessed and happy weekend. And that you get a chance to kind of chill out and let go of some of this craziness and do something fun. And at least that's going to be my goal for the weekend. I've got some writing work to do because I'm finishing up this book on Monopoly, but I am going to try and take some time off. So anyhow, that, and don't forget, democracy is not a spectator sport. It does require all of us, and that includes you, to get out there and get active. So tag, you're it. Have a wonderful weekend. We'll be back here on Monday. Talk to you then.
You've been listening to Thom Hartmann. For audio and video archives, visit thomhartmann.com.